session. So that's why there won't be a roll call or anything at this point, but I'll continue on with the agenda. I would like to just remind everybody, well, two things. First off, seeing so many of you wearing a mask, I thank you for that. And I guess I'd say, I was talking to Beth a second ago, wondering if we should be wearing masks. I think you'll hear us. We're far enough away from you. All of us are vaccinated, so I'm comfortable. I think we'll too, but let's not wear masks. If not, raise your hand. So that takes us to the first item on the agenda. Oh, one other thing. We have a really long agenda tonight. We have at least two things, if not three, that by themselves could take more than an hour for us to go through. So I just urge you to be concise in your comments and your feedback to us, and try and understand that I'm going to try and keep things moving. So first up is additions or deletions of the agenda. Is there anything you need to add or delete?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to request the addition of an item after the fire restrictions item about water restrictions and consideration of downgrading from mandatory restrictions to voluntary water restrictions. Please.
Okay. So that it'd be a new item number 17 and everything bumped down or something like that.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else?
I have nothing.
Did you want to ask about moving the landscape discussion up?
Oh, that's right. We can play it by ear, but I think it would be best if we move the ordinance updating the landscape regulations to after the joint work session, if you all are amenable to that.
That would be moving item number 15 up behind item number 9. So hopefully that's okay with everybody. Anything else? Hearing none, that brings us to adoption of the consent calendar. Is there anything on the consent calendar that wants to pull off? And it's not a good motion to approve.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Second. Motion made by Beth, seconded by Russ. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Beck.
Aye.
Borelli. Aye. Bramley. Bramley.
Aye.
Bacon.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye. All right, thank you. This takes us to public comments. This is a section established on the agenda for anyone in the public who wants to address us on something that's not already on the agenda. Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. In brief, I just wanted to ask a question about when the water carrying capacity completed came to about. Do you have any idea when it's going to come back to the OSP?
So I think Mr. Nowak's referring to the water supply assessment that LRE Water is conducting. And I see Joanne in the room. I think late October, early November is when they're slated to have that assessment wrapped up. That's off the top of my head, though. Don't quote me on that.
Got it. Thank you so much. So I just want to talk about town planner. Anyways, I've talked with Preston about this, talked to John about this, and it's for the council. Anybody else that's interested? I was interested. It seems like we got some unprecedented growth that has been confirmed by Preston, where he's got 17 or 18 development applications on his desk, basically 45 to 60 days out at this time. In the not too distant past, we had Jan Coates, the town manager. We also had Shay, the support, as town planner. These days, Preston fields all this stuff. He's the first line of defense on this, has all the meetings. And again, in his words, development is at an unprecedented level. Obviously, dollars are going to drive this, and it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down. For me, I'm just wondering, so to speak, what's the breaking point? How much is on Preston's plate? How much can he handle? And the attention to detail, honestly. I know we work with these planners out of the Silver Fund that are contract planners. Preston enjoys them, likes working with them. And them looking at a plant PUD is one thing, but having boots on the ground in our community, ears on the ground, is a totally different thing. I understand they've been here once since they've been contracted for the Riverfront Village, which I think everybody else calls Triangle Subdivision. So they've been here once in Silverthorne, okay? But it also seems like we do need somebody on the ground to direct the fabric of this community. Beyond just incoming development applications. I do understand also there's a salary study for town planners coming down the road that's going to help you guys assess how much you can spend on potentially somebody in the office. And I just feel like it'd be nice to have maybe a blend of that, maybe one or the other, or actually somebody here or Glenn supporting Preston in that. And I think about things that maybe wouldn't have slipped through the cracks. Maybe we wouldn't have planted sod at Heritage Park down here, where it could have been xeriscape. And maybe we'd be walking our walk a little bit more than putting down sod in that area. Or another is maybe just looking at issues around town, like all of us driving the gauntlet when you drive past Taco Del Mar on Cora Street. And the traffic backing out into those lanes, and it's kind of a nightmare in there, and you really got to be heads up. So things like that. Anyways, those are my comments. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys are seriously planning getting somebody with boots on the ground in the future.
Thank you, Jim. I think you touched on the fact that you talked to Preston, you talked to me, and told you our approach on that. And I think it's really important that we have this salary study in place so we know what we should be offering and then we're paying a fair wage. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Preston?
No, that's great remarks. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're calling it a classification and compensation study. And Pam and I actually met with the consultant this morning. We're on schedule. So hopefully we have the results of that study and recommendations from the consultant in time for the budget cycle in early to mid-September.
That was what I was going to add to Jim, is that with the budget cycle coming up, that's something we can continue to discuss as a council and put emphasis on.
And as I mentioned to you earlier, Jim, one thing that I've advocated ever since Jen Coates was town manager in the middle of her tenure is that we really need to get our town manager a executive assistant, somebody who can be the front line, dealing with people who come in the door demanding just talk to the town manager, and have somebody that can put out fires and handle the day-to-day people coming in cold and make it so the person can be doing his job anymore.
Would that be something that you guys also would consider to put in the budget?
Yeah, I've advocated for years, and staff's always insisted that everything was okay. Hopefully we can talk Preston into this year. All right, anybody else? Yes.
Gary Dick from Liddell Drive. I wanted to raise some questions and make some comments about Cottonwood Creek and its ongoing maintenance. I'm going to hand out these handouts, and then I'm going to try and wrap it through some of what's in them by looking at pictures on the wall there, but it might go faster. So to get oriented, Cottonwood Creek is joined by Dallas Creek up here about half a mile at County Road 5, and then it flows down past Market Street, and it used to follow the natural gradient down towards the road bridge, crossing Liddell Drive further up than it does now. At some point, there was a man-made ditch put in that went around the end of the Liddell Stanton subdivision, and it joins the river here. Next picture. If we look at the floodplain map dates back to 1984, and a study was done at the time that was detailed for the Uncle Padre, but Cottonwood Creek is just an estimate. And in fact, although it shows the ditch portion that was artificially put in here, shows the river kind of either side of the creek. You can tell this is an estimate because this is uphill and water doesn't flood uphill. So back in the day, when we went to build an outlet, which is triangle here, we had a letter of map revision done so we could accurately portray the creek. Next slide. On June 24th, we came really close to having a flash flood in town. I don't know how many people are aware how close it was, but this, you can see the edge of our house right here. This right here, this picture, it's hard to tell the little willows and everything here. This is 10 or 12 feet deep right here and about 15 feet across. And this is taken after the water subsided a little bit. So it actually came to bank full here. And at that corner on the previous slide where it makes that artificial turn in the ditch, it was actually lapping over the bank. So on that day, that water all came down because at the junction of Dallas Creek and Cottonwood Creek, there's an open dam there. Diverts most of the water into a ditch system run by the Dallas Creek Ditch Association. That dam collapsed under the weight of all the water. The water all came down through the town, and we got this situation here. The capacity of the concrete culvert was put in after the last flood at Main Street. That culvert was, the capacity was exceeded, the water was a foot below the roadway there. So that culvert was completely full and started getting back to the river there. A very large, 33-foot long culvert that I think used to be under the railroad bed was swept from its location up there, down around that 90-degree bend, down past here and around the corner that way, and is now in the wetlands near the river. And as I said, the bank was full right here. So my comment about the flood really is, or questions, observations, really relate to something be done about the structure or lack of structure up at the Dallas Creek Junction. The culvert there is really small. Show me the next slide. So this is the bank, the earthen bank that's up there that the Dallas Creek Ditch Association has. When the water comes down Dallas Creek, this is obviously normal flow, goes this way and then through this small culvert on the County Road 5. When this flows out, obviously all the debris and everything just comes down through the town. I don't know if anything goes down the ditches, but in any event, this is a very small culvert. So I'm wondering if there should be some work done with Dallas Creek to put a structure in here, a gated structure that would more efficiently divert water both ways and enlarge this culvert, and that would be less water coming through the town. Next slide. The floods are really dramatic, but perhaps more insidious and continuously going on is erosion, because there's a lot of debris in the creek. Cottonwood limbs, there's planks where people have decided they want to cross the creek. Every time you have some kind of obstruction, there's a little waterfall, you can't really see here. Below the waterfall, you get a big swirling eddy, and it undercuts the bank, and the bank collapses in with all the vegetation and everything on it. And you can see debris in here. So I have a question about who does the maintenance on the creek and who's keeping it, clear. The next slide. You can see here what I'm talking about. This whole tank is on this bottom out all in. Next slide. This just shows you that huge steel culvert that I don't know how it got down those corners, but it's down at the river now. And obviously it needs to be taken out, and we see all this debris and stuff in the waterway. And then the last slide. As I said, when we built our house, we wanted to know where the floodplain really was, not where somebody just decided to show it. And so we did a big study and submitted for a letter of map revision to FEMA to get the floodplain plotted for our lot. At the time, Jan Coates and the town had decided to do the same thing, but they weren't sure when they were going to pick it up. So we couldn't wait. We did our study. We turned our information over to the town, to Jan, who in turn turned them over to Pete Sauer of Orion Consulting, I believe. The last I heard about this was they had done all the work. They plotted, the catchment area, the amount of rainfall that would be coming down, the soil percolation rates, the creek volumes, and so on, all the way down. And it was ready to go for submission. But I heard a couple of months ago it never went in. And so, if all the work is done, my question on that is, why not submit for the application so the property owners up and down on the street everywhere know what the floodplain really is, and when we're looking at future development, we know what we're talking about. So I guess somewhere in here in summary, given projections for increasingly severe and more frequent storms, will the town try and work with the Ditch Association on improvements of the culvert and the diversion with Dallas Creek? Or is the Dallas Finch south of County Road 5 unable to accept a larger share of the water volume during a flood? What is the maintenance plan to keep debris, willows, et cetera, out of the creek and prevent further bank erosion and flooding? Will the artificial turn and ditch at the east end of the creek be reinforced? I meant to mention that, I just briefly stated. As I said, the ditch goes across the side of the hill, not down it. So it's gonna, that corner is gonna want to continue to erode south towards Lot 10 and Lot 11 on Bell Drive. It's just gonna want to migrate down there. When will the town remove the pole from the wetlands by the river? Yes, you probably didn't know about it, so. And when will the letter of map division be submitted to FEMA? And I'm not really expecting an answer, I just want to raise the issue.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, this is obviously a big one, and I can say as someone who's been involved for many years in Ridgway, we've had many conversations about this. We've come really close to having an agreement with Dallas Ditch Association to build an actual weir at County Road 5, and I'm not sure why that's always fallen through. I think it's always a matter of money, right? But these are all really good points, especially we had two flood events this summer already, and I think you're absolutely correct in that we're going to start seeing more and more of them. So I guess all I can say at this point is that we'll make sure staff takes these questions under advisement and that we try and get you some answers. That's about all we can do. And I share your concerns. Thank you for this detailed set of data and pictures and everything. I wasn't aware of the culvert. That's pretty amazing that that thing somehow washed over down there. I wonder where it was originally.
It's under the railroad bridge on the Housing property,
Right.
where that is, I think that was what.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you for your input, and we'll keep you posted. Hopefully Preston and staff can find out where that navigation is, and we'll definitely deal with these questions. Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, that takes us to public press and presentations. The first one is item number 4, update from the Uray County Public Health Director, Tanner Kingley. I think we have him remote on Zoom.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Tanner. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tanner. Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome.
Great. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. Preston, can I share my screen, or how do you want to do that?
One sec, you should be good to go now.
And just so everybody knows, we're Tanner's sharing anybody who's remote is sharing their screen via Zoom. Preston is sharing the same information by our iPad here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for that. I reached out to Preston just knowing, I talk to the county commissioners all the time and give them presentations, and I need to be doing that for everyone, not just commissioners, but town council, city council, and Uray, whoever wants more information. I just want to be as available as possible and just be a resource for everyone. So thank you for this opportunity. I know you guys have a lot on your agenda tonight, so I'm going to fly through this and hopefully have time for questions that I might not touch on. So just want to start out with quick updates. We'll look at what's going on with variants, some case data and hospitalization statuses, and then talk about the COVID vaccine a little bit. So first of all, when Mesa County was experiencing all those cases of Delta and they were having a hard time in congregate care settings and nursing homes, CDC came to fly in and look at what's going on, because at that point, Mesa County was a hotspot really in the country for the Delta variant. So they have released their study through the MMWR on August 6th. You can find this online if you Google CDC Mesa County study. But it's just interesting to see a CDC study from our region. And the bottom line is the Delta variant is very transmissible and it spreads very rapidly and very easily. So if you want more information on that, feel free to Google CDC Mesa County, and you can find this study. It's pretty interesting to read. For the public health nerd in me, it's cool to see some studies from our region. All right, this is a statewide chart of the variant of concern, particularly highlighting the Delta variant has comprised almost 100% of all the variants that are being sequenced at the state lab. Not too shocking to see that, but just wanted to highlight that. The Delta variant is still dominating, with the Alpha variant still hanging on a little bit too. This is the total number of variants by counties in our region. As you can see here, Mesa County has eclipsed 1,000 cases of Delta. We have identified 5 cases of Delta in Uribe County so far. San Miguel County has identified 5, Delta 24, and Gunnison 20. The Delta variant has been identified in 81% of all counties in Colorado. And the Delta variant is comprising about 92% of all the variants identified in this region. Our counties in our region, Mesa County is making up about 92% of all those Delta cases. So still pretty widespread, but Mesa County is still dominating all those cases. So looking at our Uribe County metrics, where are we at today? Our positivity rate is a little higher than we'd like to see. We'd like to see that below 5, but right now we're at 6.3%. That can swing pretty quickly because some weeks we don't test very many people. Some weeks we test a lot of people. So that positivity rate can swing back and forth pretty quickly. So we really want to look at the number of new cases that we're experiencing as a better measure. So we have had 8 cases in the last 7 days. Our last confirmed case, we had 2 confirmed cases come in today. We've had a total of 325 total cases, 11 of which have been breakthrough vaccine cases. That is where a fully vaccinated person has tested positive. That's known as a breakthrough case. And we did have another death to report today, to total 5 deaths for Uribe County residents due to COVID. We have identified 9 variants, 2 of the Alpha, 2 of the Epsilon, and 5 of the Delta. This is a timeline looking at when we had our first cases in April of 2020 to now. As you can see, activity is still present. You know, we're still seeing sometimes 0 cases a day, sometimes 4. 4 is the most as of recently, but just showing, you know, where we're at right now, how activity has kind of been steady, but picked up a little bit here lately. This is kind of what Mayor Clark was talking about earlier, with the CDC has recommended indoor masking in counties that are experiencing high or substantial transmission. And they look at this on a week or 6-day to 7-day time period. We're at substantial right now. We're usually bouncing between high and substantial, even dipping down into moderate. Last time we were in moderate was July the 27th. So as you can see, I don't particularly like this measure, this data point, just because of how our low numbers can really swing us from moderate to substantial to high, even to low in a week, 2-week time frame. So you know, how do you recommend masks one week and then not the next, and then recommend them again the next week? It can get really messy. So right now there are no mask mandates in the county. We do recommend indoor masking because we have pretty much stayed at substantial and high on this chart and this data source. But we do dip down into moderate at time to time. So just keep that in mind. Think about your mask use when you're out in public. But at this time, there are no mask mandates in the county. This chart is looking at hospitalizations versus vaccination status with this line fit through the middle. As you can see, counties that have higher vaccination rates are experiencing lower hospitalization rates when it comes to COVID, which is what we would expect. More people vaccinated, less people hospitalized. And it's just good to see that playing out in the data as well. We have our counties, Mesa County up here, Montrose down here. Hi. Lower vaccination rates, higher hospitalization rates. This is looking at deaths versus vaccination. Same story. As you can see, counties with higher vaccination rates here at the bottom are experiencing lower death rates. All right, COVID-19 vaccine. This is Uribe County measures. So we have hit the 70% with at least one dose, which are happy to do that, but we want to see that continue to rise. With 65% fully vaccinated and about 4% of patients still needing that second dose. We are 17th in the state on both the measures of patients with one dose and patients fully immunized, which is good. We'd like to see that a little bit better, but we're hanging in there. Frequently asked question right now is booster doses. Essentially, right now, we are not giving booster doses, whether you had Johnson & Johnson or the mRNA vaccines. At this point, that has not been authorized by FDA and CDC. This vaccine is still under emergency use authorization, so we have to stay within those guidelines. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices is meeting on Friday to discuss booster doses for immunocompromised patients. So people who have a suppressed immune system where the vaccine might not have taken as well. They're looking at boosters for people in that category. So be looking for maybe an announcement Friday, maybe not, but that advisory committee advises the CDC. So I'm going to follow that meeting pretty closely on Friday to see what comes out of it. So more to come on that, but that is a question we get quite a lot right now is about booster doses. So right now, just hang tight. Most of the world still doesn't have the luxury that we have to great access to this vaccine. So giving third doses to us when a lot of the world has not even got one feels a little odd and feels a little, it gives me hesitation on where we're going with these booster doses, let's just say. It's just hard to stomach that a little bit, but we'll see what the advisory committee comes out with on Friday. This is looking at doses administered by age group, just highlighting our 60 to 69 age group is the most highly vaccinated, fully vaccinated at this point at about 81%. The 18 to 29 age group, which is a little bigger age group when it comes to the span of ages, they're the lowest vaccinated at about 32%. So I have been doing some outreach to more of that straight to work population, hospitality industry, restaurant industry to see, can we bring vaccine to your workplace and meet you at a staff meeting or before a shift change where we can vaccinate some staff who might be interested, but they can't get the time off to come to public health. We just want to be more available with this vaccine. So we are doing outreach right now to restaurants and the hospitality industry. So if you're interested, please call us at Public Health. We can set something up at your place of business. We have administered 51 doses in about a month, since about July 13th, which has picked up a little bit as compared to the beginning of July. This is a statewide distribution of vaccine breakthrough cases versus vaccinated Coloradans, highlighting here the 80+ age category. They only comprise about 4.4% of vaccinated Coloradans, but they're experiencing about 8% of breakthrough cases. So I'm not too surprised to see that. People with lower immune system where the vaccine might have taken as well. We do expect breakthrough cases, but just wanted to highlight that. The breakthrough cases are touching pretty much every age category, as you can see on this chart. Even the 10 to 19 category, still experiencing some breakthrough cases. All right, and just to summarize, things you can do to help us end the pandemic and in this crisis that's been brought on by COVID. Number one, get the COVID vaccine when it's available to you. That is your best defense against all variants, even the Delta variant. Wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart from others who don't live with you, avoid crowds and poorly ventilated spaces, and wash your hands often with soap and water, and use hand sanitizer if you don't have access to soap and water. Bottom line, we have the tools it takes to end this, which is the vaccine. So let's do it. We need to increase our vaccination rates above 70%. We need to get a lot higher than that to protect everyone. And we're all still vulnerable as long as we're not all protected still. So please continue to stay up to date on the county website as well as the state website has great information. And feel free to call me too as a resource. I just want to be available and helpful to you all. So that's it. And I'll happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thanks, Tanner. I really appreciate that. Anybody on the council have questions for Tanner? Anybody in the audience? All right, looks like we're good, Candace. That was a very complete report. We really appreciate all you're doing for us.
Of course. Thank you all. Thanks for all you're doing.
All right, take care. That brings us to item number 5, presentation on the Ridgway Plastic Film Upcycling Program, Carry On Girls, in partnership with Eco Action Partners, Ridgway Hardware, and Outline Bank. Ladies?
My name is Willow. This is my mom, Deidre, and I'm from Indigo. Some of you may know us from the 2018 MAG ban. And so we just have a presentation on our continued efforts with our plastic film upcycling system, our community and our businesses. So we're here representing Carry On Ridgway Reuses, and we're dedicated to raising awareness about the dangers of plastics and helping Ridgway become a single-use plastic-free town. So obviously, know the problem of plastic pollution is devastating habitat, wildlife, and human health. And it's estimated that 1 million seabirds are killed by plastic pollution each year, and we really just want to be a part of the change. Because we believe in a single-use plastic-free future. So in 2019, we started a plastic film pickup program in Ridgway, where we started just driving around town to all of the local businesses and picking up their plastic film and driving it to a facility in Montrose. And also installed a community drop-off plastic film box at the Alpine Bank. So if you have any personal plastic film that you like to recycle, there. So we participate in the Next Choice Recycling Program, and that's like the program that we drop off to. The Trex company who makes decking products and other building materials, they pick this plastic up at a transfer station and they turn it into valued building products. In 2020, we teamed up with Eco Action Partners in Ridgway Harbor Store, and they built a 6-inch shed that all of the participating businesses can drop off their plastic to, just to make things easier. So the program we came up with, before we were just going around and picking up whoever had plastic and volunteering all our time. So we turned it into a subscription-based program. Businesses who want to participate and access the shed, they pay $100 a year, and they also, we give them some collection bags to use, and the money that is collected from this program will stay in a fund for this program and future Ridgway sustainability projects. So it won't just be dissolved into the Eco Action budget. And we also provide businesses with all of the information about their impact. So like so we weigh all the plastic, so they get a report on how much plastic that they diverted from the landfill. And then Eco Action Partners also does a carbon footprint study, and I don't know all the details of that, but then they will give that data to the businesses also. They convert the pounds into reduced carbon footprint. And also another thing about why we keep track of the weights is that if our region as a whole collects enough weight, then Trex will start paying us for the plastic, and we can in turn pay somebody to come and pick it up and do the transfer and create a whole new recycling stream for the community. So it could be curbside or however that works. And since November, we've collected 350 pounds of plastic These are the participating businesses so far. We have Ridgway Hardware, Colorado Woodbury Warranty Program, and Ridgway Natural Foods. And of course, Alpine Bank, they have the community drop-off where you can take their household assets. We use this quote a lot, but we really feel like it makes a difference, and every little thing that each person can do can really change the world. Thank you. We also have our email here. If you have any questions about the program or want to help, it's a volunteer pickup that we do, just let us know.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm curious, you say you collected 350 pounds since November 20, you said?
Yeah.
And how much, do you know how many pounds we have to get to get?
No,
The
I
tracks.
know, because there's the Eco Action Partners has a whole sustainability coordinator who keeps track. They collect plastic up there too, and I don't know what that is.
Is it going to be the whole region?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because we all take the plastic to City Market South, and then it's transferred to wherever Trex wants it, and then it's baled actually and then shipped to there.
Great. Well, it might be good to get that information so that we can use it to inspire people to start submitting their film.
Yeah, sure.
But thank you guys for what you do. It's been great to see the business evolve and all the great things you're doing. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody up here have any questions for them? Anybody in the audience?
Just curious, do you have signs up in different places, like can you flash through this slide that shows everything that can be recycled? And like I happen to know the cereal box liners, which I didn't even know were recycled, so they would be helpful for people to know.
At the Alpine Bank, there's a whole list of everything that is visible. If you want to go to the Trex website, they also have a list there.
Oh, great. And if you would email me, can we get this presentation?
Great, thanks. Yeah, that's really great. Kudos for what you do. All right, that takes us to item number 6, request from River Sage Homeowners Association regarding road maintenance. Representatives of the Ridgway River Sage Homeowners Association.
Hi, I'm Ed Young. I live in River Sage, down in the Park area. I'm honored to represent River Sage homeowners as their president. And I think half the audience here today is our resident homeowners. So this topic is vital to them. And so I appreciate your time. I know you guys have a lot on your plate. And thanks for hearing us out. Now, what I'm here for really today is just to request either an opinion or to gather together a special working session to address some of our concerns for the road maintenance of River Sage Road, and maybe come up with some kind of a path forward that's equitable for both the homeowners association and the town of Ridgway. A little bit of background about this: in 2009, when River Sage LLC started the development there, in the plat it lists that the River Sage homeowners are solely responsible for road maintenance of all the roads in the subdivision, and that the town is responsible for all the maintenance of Memorial Park. In 2020, a revision of that plat was made, where the River Sage LLC granted an additional approximately 21 acres to the town as part of the park, in lieu of the fact that we lost. Part of that arrangement was we went down from 24 home sites to 16 home sites as part of that arrangements. And since that time, since 2009, just to give you a perspective of it, once you leave 550 on River Sage Road and drive down across the bridge to the parking area, that entire road either abuts or is contained within the Memorial Park. Once you leave the parking area, then it transitions over to HOA property through the remainder of the development. Since 2009, all the maintenance has been done by either the LLC or the homeowners association. Such thing that we regraded the road a couple of times to some construction traffic. We've had a crew come in and repair some of the cracks in the asphalt portion of the first part of the road down to the bridge. We've mitigated some of the tall willows there that obstructed the view of the bridge. We had someone cut those down, and we have the annual snow plowing. All of that, and summing up, It's about $3,000 a year going forward to just road maintenance. And unless there's some kind of catastrophic event, which requires some more substantial road maintenance construction. Since 2009, we've seen unprecedented growth, as mentioned earlier, in Ridgway. That growth in our little community is manifested by increased park visitation and increased road traffic. A lot of that is due to road construction. A lot of that last year was due to opening of phase 2. Those lots sold rather quickly. We have noticed a decreased road traffic once the for sale signs come down. There's still a substantial amount of traffic. People not knowing that it's a dead end, they think it's a thoroughfare. And so there's a lot of traffic outside of just the park traffic as well. To give an example, a couple of examples, on any given day, there's at any time of the day, on the average day, there's between 1 and 8 cars visiting the park in the parking area. The parking area is just to the right once you cross over the bridge. A lot of times, this is increased, of course, during the high times of tourist season. When we have local events there, like school outings, there's been some retirement homes come to visit. We have an art event that brings a lot of people down there. And that happens a lot of times, the traffic overflows the parking area, and we start having parking parallel to the road on those events, It's not uncommon to see people driving up River Sage Road and just parking on the side of the road and accessing the trails where they can, outside of parking in the parking area, the trail access down by the bridge. Unfortunately, also, is that the parking area is becoming a de facto camping ground during the high season summer months. It's not uncommon on any given week to see 1 or 2 cars, campers, or trucks parked down there overnight in the camping area. I hate to see this becoming an issue, but I think it might be as word gets out on things like TripAdvisor that, hey, there's a free, easy place to camp in Ridgway. We did a quick TripAdvisor search on the highlights of Ridgway. And the Dennis Weaver Park is number 4 on the list. The first is Ridgway State Park, which of course is not in Ridgway. Owl Creek Pass, which of course is not in Ridgway. And Last Dollar Road, which is not in Ridgway. So the number 1 attraction in Ridgway, listen to TripAdvisor, is our Dennis Weaver Park. And that brings a lot of traffic on these roads. With increased road usage, we just saw that there's a lot of traffic there. So we had some concerns about road maintenance being our responsibility. But we want to place some signage up, let people know that, hey, the park ends here, HOA starts here. Please be cognizant of the fact that you're now on private property. So we reached out to the president and said, hey, can we put some signage up? Dead end roads here, type stuff. And it came back, the president did some research, came back and said, hey, well, we appreciate you guys taking care of road maintenance because it's a town thoroughfare. Your options for signage is very limited. And so we still have that with people not knowing, coming through and thinking it's a thoroughfare, everything else. On a quick shout out, I will want to thank the police department here because they do patrol our roads twice a day. And they have responded to us several times when we've had out-of-town visitors just driving up on top of our ridges there. If you know where Boot Hill is, we've had a couple of cars drive up there to enjoy a lunch or just a time. When asked to leave, they've been very arrogant and says, we can't leave just because you tell us that to leave. So we call the sheriff and talk to them. So they've been very responsive. But the point is, when we asked the sheriff, can you do something else? Or the response to them was, we can only enforce what's posted. So I think there's a lack of knowledge for people using the Dennis Weaver Park. And road maintenance is an issue for the HOA. When we talked to the town about signage, we did learn also that River Sage Road is the only road subdivision where the homeowners are responsible for road maintenance. And we thought that since the situation has changed from 2009, when there was 24 homes, now there's only 16, and there's increased traffic because of visibility of the River Park. Tourism is growing rapidly. Ridgway is growing rapidly, so people are using that. Is it really a fair thing to ask a small subset of homeowners to be responsible for sole maintenance of the road from 550 all the way through the cul-de-sacs for now River Sage and now Chester Court and Russell Spur? And so we thought we asked the president, how do we proceed now? He suggested we come forward to the council and ask for even an opinion on how to proceed for or to grant us a special working session where HOA can meet with some of the town planners to come up with an equitable solution for road maintenance going forward in the future. So with that, here we are. And I've said my piece. Again, you can see by all of our resident homeowners that it's an important issue to them. So we're happy to answer any questions you might have on our concerns or what we think of the equipment going forward. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate it. I think I would point out, probably as the only member of town council here tonight that was involved in the original subdivision, and Rick was on town council then, it was quite unusual that that plat map was added, making it obvious and setting the road maintenance to be the responsibility of the HOA. But that's also because that's a very unique subdivision that wouldn't have been typically allowed to be annexed and subdivided in the town of Ridgway under a typical kind of urban or suburban approach to development. The deal mainly being that we got a very welcome and appreciated dedication of the park in return for allowing that subdivision to go forward. But it was apparent to us from the get-go that we simply didn't have the resources to maintain those roads, as disconnected as they are from the rest of the town. And you know, I realize it's an issue for you guys, but until the town evolves, I mean, I think you heard Jim's comments earlier about his concerns about what's going on in town and the issues in the core of town that are happening that he points out are being dealt with, maybe to the degree they should be. We still, and then even more so, probably just don't have the resources to take that on. So my suggestion would be, now I don't know what Preston's thinking was on the saying that there aren't many options for signage. I would think that we probably could put up, you know, dead end road, private property, both sides of the road, HOA begins here, some basic signage like that. I think we could do. And I think that staff could work with you to make that happen. But my take is it's going to be quite some time before the town has both the financial resources and the manpower to actually fully take on maintenance of that road, if ever. So
Certainly.
While that's true, John, at the same time, it seems odd to be like, well, then it's a town thoroughfare and you can't put up, you know,
true.
like that contradiction, like, is uncomfortable, right? Like, if we're maintaining the road, yeah, we may not put up, you know, HOA signs if we don't have them when you go into Solar Ranch or you drive to River Park. But, you know, to ask the homeowners association to not be able to be clear that it is essentially a town thoroughfare that is a private road, which is odd. And I don't know what the answer is.
So if I may, we do get highway user tax funds for those roads. So they're not, based on my understanding, they're not private roads. They're public
So,
roads.
but
The
then-
question that was posed to me was about signing that they're private roads. Just
So we get
yeah.
highway user funds for them, but then we're not using any on that road. Like, you see, it's just kind of one of those like weird, messy, like we've had those before where there was a reason for the agreement when it happened.
What level of maintenance is necessary right now? Are you talking about snow removal or what, just that summertime?
We have annual snow removal. We have got coming for us. We regraded the road twice in the last, since 2009, primarily for road construction. And we do charge new construction a fee for regrading after the next road. So that part is taken care of with. Talking with Rick, and some of the costs that the LLC has picked up since 2009 on an annual basis. We come up with a total about 3,000 that might be necessary. And that includes like a road grading, which is sort of something that happens every year. There's maintenance. Again, it's not a large amount at all. What we're concerned about is a catastrophic event that occurs, and the homeowner would be therefore mandated to fix that road in a timely fashion, or a lane we place on our properties until it's done. And we feel that's an unfair practice. to the president's point, we get money for the road, and yet that money's not allocated to servicing the road. Now, one equitable arrangement I can see would be that the town pick up responsibility, 550, the parking lot. And the HOA pick up responsibility, and that portion that runs through our private HOA portion. That seems to be an equitable piece for that. That would really alleviate the town from doing any road grading whatsoever, because it's all paved up into the car park, really. So really, it's snow removal and a little bit of maintenance of the asphalt road. And you know, we've taken care of cutting the levels down in the past. To give, there's kind of, they obstruct the view of the bridge as we come down from the top of the road. So that might seem to be an equitable fix, but I think we need to get together and just talk about that and see if that would be an equitable way to go.
Let me give the town engineer opportunity to chime in.
When subdivision was being proposed, the town had reservations, as John mentioned, about something so separate from the core of the town. But we also had concerns about there being a bridge, and we had no intention of taking on responsibility for a bridge. And the development, the subdivision process, the roads are narrower than town roads, they're steeper than town roads. They don't have shoulders where there are steep drop-offs. There are a number of things that if the town had any intention of taking the road over, would have to have been built to a much higher standard than it was. But John, correct me, but it seems like the bridge was one of the really big things that the town did not want any responsibility for.
But I might suggest also maybe a resolution from a joint session to talk about it, be some kind of an equitable trade-off in case of a catastrophic event. Again, this River Park is the #1 attraction in Ridgway. You have to let it on TripAdvisor, even today when we check it. And so it is a draw for the community. I think it is a community responsibility. The town is tasked with maintenance of the Dennis River Park. That's not HOA responsibility. So I think there's shared responsibilities for use of the road. And I think it's only equitable for us to sit down together and figure out what would be a good shared responsibility for maintenance of it.
And you did propose a meeting between the planners and the HOA to
Sure.
introduce these stuff.
I'm not here tonight to debate pros and cons of it. I'm just saying, hey, we have a concern about that for future maintenance. We'd like to just gather together and talk. Is there a path forward that we can have some kind of explanation? That's all we're asking for.
I think there's probably consensus up here that it makes sense to continue the discussion between the HOA and staff. I think there's obviously a lot of sticky issues involved here, and
I agree. Some of them will be simpler, like dead end sign, we could probably figure, those things out. And, Joanne makes it very clear why the note was added to the plat. Those ones get a lot more.
Sure. So if I may, yeah, we can certainly work through more signage or whatever the issue is there. But to be clear, the path forward for a change like this would be to submit an application for a plat amendment.
Sure.
And so the whole point of having you come here today was to gauge the appetite for, actually venturing through that process,
Exactly.
which is, to be honest, a little cumbersome. Planning commission, town council, the whole night.
Yeah, we appreciate the guidance on that. If you didn't know where to go, we appreciate the guidance.
Anyway, it sounds like the direction is to continue, for the HOA to continue talks with staff, and they can decide at that point, at some point in the future, whether or not to venture through that process. Does that sound?
yeah, and Rick wants to chime in here, but just before that, the way Preston just worded it, I suppose it might make sense to have just kind of I don't know, appropriate or not, vote to have a straw poll about whether the council is open to a plat amendment that would make it so that we take over maintenance of the streets, because I think that's a pretty sticky wicket.
Yeah, I think probably more so just a consensus in terms of some direction, but I think there's been enough feedback. I mean, don't let me speak for the applicant, but it seems like there's been enough feedback from the council in terms of what the concerns would be with that application.
Okay, that makes sense. Rick?
Yeah, a couple of points. Number one, talking about a so-called dead end where people don't know it is. There's been no outlet sign out there since day one, right on
Oh
the
my
highway.
God.
So either people just aren't reading it, or they can't read, or they just want to go in there and sightsee and they don't care. So the sign is there. Now, that being said, I do think that the subject of a little more signage out there to help the homeowners and to help people understand what's going on, I think is warranted and should be accepted.
Yeah, I don't think there's
a lot.
I don't think there's a no outlet sign, west of the bridge or west of.
No, there's nothing west of the bridge. It's
So
right
I-
on the highway.
I think that a reminder is needed to,
Fine.
once people go to the park,
Yeah.
to be reminded that, no, you really don't need to go further up this road because it's a dead end and it's private property. And staff can work with you guys on getting some appropriate signage for that.
And just to get back to what I'm hearing from the HOA is, a good solution for them would be, since the road from the highway to the park goes to your park, basically, and that's just one little section that is already paved. And the only maintenance in that area is fixing the cracks once in a while, and that's maybe a few $100 a year or every 2 years. That's not a lot. And as far as the willows are concerned, if we get somebody to hire somebody to cut them down, not waiting every 2 years, it won't be such a big job. I don't think it would cost that much. As far as the bridge, I've personally gone down and swept the bridge off myself. I don't see why that somebody from the HOA couldn't do that periodically, because it does build up because of the ground. But I don't think that's a big deal either. So maintenance from the highway to the bridge itself, not very much. But I think it's more of a principle involved.
Yeah, we do have a volunteer in our HOA. We have a volunteer work relationship to where we go out and do work on the roads. Move the rocks, sweep the bridge if need be, cut stuff down, maintain the trails. So we do have a volunteer program. We're concerned for what I have in the future with the increased traffic, some catastrophic event. All the night is placed on the homeowners to take care of it, even when it's advertised and touted as a town entity.
I think the biggest sticking points can be the bridge, as Joanne pointed out. I don't think the town has ever been interested in taking on responsibility for that bridge, so.
I don't think we're asking them,
Okay, well,
because I don't think the bridge needs anything, so it's been sweeping the box.
I mean, the catastrophic event
Well,
issue.
when we put it in, I tried to get insurance for that, and they don't offer flood insurance for it. It's not offered, no, it couldn't get it. So, that thing is pretty sturdy unless some driver runs into the rails, which is they're responsible for fixing it. I don't see that there is any bridge maintenance.
It's not about maintenance, it's about the potential for a catastrophic event is what I'm hearing. So that's an issue we've got to find a solution for. I'm not sure how that's.
All I know is I couldn't get insurance for it. And I'm
Not
sure
typical.
you can't get bridge insurance.
Yeah, I think that's pretty typical. All right, well, so further meetings with staff, arrange some discussions about signage, and then the other issues are going to be a longer discussion. But
Well, we appreciate the openness of this to consider more about. We appreciate that.
absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Calvin?
Could I add just a quick comment?
Yes, Dave.
We didn't even discuss this on our prior meetings, but it occurred to me, the common land that's outside of the properties and the building envelopes constitutes part of a town park. There is from the bridge, to the side of the bridge, going up to the junction of Rusty Spur and continuing a footpath. So am I right or wrong in assuming that that footpath is part of the town park? Because if it is, who's responsible for that maintenance? In other words, if you have a look at it now, the drainage, there's been little channels.
Yep. I don't think that's town property. I think that's.
So are you saying we should be responsible, or is that town responsible?
I believe it's your responsibility, but I'm not sure.
I didn't see anything in the plan.
Rick, did you have?
My only comment is part of it's in the park and part of it's not, because at some point,
The part that's not in the park is the HOA's responsibility.
yeah, that's what I always thought. And Rustin's been doing the spraying and the maintenance for no cost.
So
Wow, he's not here.
LLC, which is being expanded.
Huh?
It's part of the old LLC.
Well, yeah, we paid for it. Rustin's not here anymore. So they'll need to have somebody at least do the spraying and possibly.
Well, there have been some volunteers
Okay.
outside of the subdivision.
short piece of the trail is still in the park and the rest of it's not.
Okay, you guys need to continue that discussion elsewhere, but thank you, appreciate your time, and stay tuned. Thank you. That brings us to request to hold a special event in Hartwell Park on September 5th for the annual Ridgway Fire Department Labor Day Dance. Is somebody here representing the fire department, or are they on Zoom? It's you, okay. Good track. I didn't know you were on the fire department.
I'm not, but I'm the person representing it.
Okay, great.
All right. I'm just bringing this forward just because the fire department is wanting to take their annual event outside the fire department and put it into the park. They want to rent the stage and do their annual dance out within the park using the stage, and those things have to come to council for approval. So that's why.
Okay. Seems like a pretty straightforward deal. Anybody have any questions for Pam? I think it's a.
Sounds like a COVID smart choice.
Yeah,
Great.
it definitely does, and I like the idea. I think I've always wanted to see more entities in the town using that stage, and that's why we revisited the fee structure earlier this year, and so I'm excited about this. Makes a lot of sense. Assuming they have or will make arrangements with the motion department to make sure
Yeah,
that's all covered and all that.
sure, we've done all our applications, we followed all our protocols. It's a requirement that we have that an event come to council.
Okay. Anybody in audience have questions or comments? Anybody else up here, or someone with a motion?
I move to approve the special event permit for the Ridgway Volunteer Fire Department on September 5th.
All right, motion made and seconded. We have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Stack.
Aye.
Sorelli.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Bacon.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye. All right, passed unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Should be a fun event. That takes us to public hearings. Item number 8, final plat for North Seal subdivision, lot 14, Parkside subdivision. Welcome, guys. Preston, are you gonna? Oh, no, we've got TJ here. TJ is here remotely, and he's gonna take this on via Zoom, and Preston will share whatever documentation necessary here, and you can share yours on Zoom, TJ. Welcome.
Excellent. Good evening. And I don't have anything to share, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll have the staff report. So as you mentioned, what we're here for this evening is review and decision on the North Seal subdivision final plat. This parcel was originally platted as Parkside subdivision, and the plat created 23 residential lots and 1 open space tract. 6 of the lots were created with notes that, as allowing 2 or 3 single-family units on each of them. A notation on lot 14 states 3 single-family equivalents as being allowed on that lot 14, which is what we're here talking about this evening. This note is meant to allow up to 3 single-family dwelling units on the parcel. Since the zone district R, low-density residential, does not allow more than 2 dwelling units by right, but allows 3 units by conditional use, it's interpreted and understood that that node is to allow 3 units on that parcel. So that's where the equivalents come from. Lot 14, just geographically in the subdivision, is bordered on 3 sides by streets: Laura Street to the east, North Rail Street to the south, Green Street to the west. There are also a number of drainage or different easements that impact the size and the development potential of this parcel. A large 50-foot drainage easement to the south, a 8-foot irrigation easement to the west, and then a 15-foot utility easement to the east. The lot 14 is has an area of 23,708 square feet, which is roughly 0.5 acres, just over a half an acre. And the minimum lot size in the R district is 6,000 square feet. 6,000 square feet for single family, 10,000 for a duplex or other uses. Note 2 of the North Seal subdivision states that the 3 proposed lots are subject to the original plat notes. I think that's important because there are a wide range of plat notes on the original plat, and we're just continuing those forward to this plat, this re-subdivision of lot 14. A few of the things that I just wanted to bring to your attention is that no lot bordering Green Street or Parkside Drive shall be used for access to those parcels. So this meets that note requirement. Also, note 16 note 6 of the original plat subjects lot 14 to affordable housing provisions as set forth in the plat note, and those are also continued onto this this replat. So what the applicant is, that's kind of some background of the original plat, and what the applicant is asking for this evening is to take that lot 14 and subdivide it into 3 separate parcels. So again, just to kind of summarize, the original plat note allows up to 3 units on the 1 parcel. The applicant is requesting to create 3 parcels to sell each parcel separately of that one original lot 14. So notice of the public hearing was posted and noticed and sent to adjacent property owners in accordance, or posted within in accordance with the town code, section 7323D. So all of those requirements have been met for tonight's meeting. The proposed subdivision does meet all of the dimensional standards of the zone district, the R district, and each of the 3 lots will have their own direct access onto North Laura Street. It should be noted that originally this went to Planning Commission with a request for a variance of a lot width. One of the parcels was less than the 50-foot required lot width. They went back and readjusted upon decision and recommendation of Planning Commission, made that adjustment and are now meeting all of the dimensional standards of the zone district. Utilities were installed in conjunction with the original subdivision plat of Parkside subdivision, and therefore the applicant is not going to be responsible for any public improvements tied to this. All the sidewalk is already in, all of the utilities are stubbed out to the property, and so this is just any further development would tie into existing infrastructure that is in place that is capable of handling 3 units. At the time the applicant submits a building permit, adequate water and sewer lines shall be depicted on the submitted plans, and if necessary, establishment of easements may be needed. And that's because, again, with the anticipation of having one property, it was anticipated that it would be under single ownership, and with potential separate ownership, we may need to get easements based on the utility alignments. Here, moving on to affordable housing component. One of the main goals, and I'm anticipating that Therese is in the audience and will be presenting here soon, so I'll let her and/or Josh explain a little bit better. But one of the main reasons for this subdivision is to allow an affordable development, a more affordable development in this area. So the provisions of the affordable housing that were on the original Parkside subdivision plat will still continue to apply to this lot 14. And then on there, it was on July 27th, just a couple weeks ago, the Ridgway Planning Commission recommended approval of the North Seal subdivision with all four of staff's recommended conditions. And so with that, staff continues to recommend that the town of Ridgway Town Council approve the North Seal subdivision with the following conditions. One, a reproducible Mylar properly executed by all parties except the town officials be submitted to the town within 30 days of approval of the subdivision by town council. Two, note 9 stating that all 3 lots are to own the sewer line be removed. Condition number 3, any water and sewer tap fees which have not been paid or waived pursuant to note 6 of the Parkside subdivision plat shall be paid in accordance with section 919 of the Ridgway Municipal Code prior to issuance of the first building permit for any lot in the subdivision. And 4, amend the title of the subdivision to refer to this as a replat of lot 14. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have. And if not, I believe that the applicant hopefully is in the audience to give a short presentation as well.
Questions from council?
Seems pretty well done.
Yeah, thanks, TJ, for that excellent summary of the application. Therese, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just, a couple of points I just wanted to point out. It says that they have to be owner occupied. It's not that we're splitting into 3 lots so that we can sell them separately. They have to be owner occupied. I just wanted to say that we've been here for 25 years and we believe in affordable housing, and I think this is an important little piece.
Hey, please, great, they're already on this item.
Somebody needs to mute themselves on Zoom, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would just throw out that I really appreciate you guys. I know you were disappointed that we had some problems with the original application, and we went back and took them to heart and made the adjustments, and it looks great. I'm really, really happy with what we've got in front of us now. So thank you. Appreciate the extra work you guys went to make that happen.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? Okay. We want to make a motion. We've got a.
I move to approve the final plat for North Seal subdivision lot 14. Dale subdivision.
There are some.
Do I need to, including the conditions recommended in the staff report?
Dated August 5th. Staff report.
Dated August 5th.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, thank you. Motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Stack?
Aye.
O'Reilly? Aye. Bramley?
Aye.
Bacon?
Aye.
Schuyler?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer?
Aye. There you go, passed unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right, that takes us to one of our big items for tonight. Number 9, under policy matters, joint work session with the Ridgway Planning Commission to discuss the Telluride Foundation Workforce Housing Project. Preston, kick it off. Or let me, this is a joint work session with the Planning Commission. We have Planning Commission members here, Doug Canright, Jennifer Nelson, Michelle Montague, Joe List, myself and Russ Meyer are also on the Planning Commission for the Ridgway Charter. So I just welcome you guys and to encourage you to, Tom might be on Zoom.
Yeah, Thomas is on Zoom.
Thomas is on Zoom, Thomas Emerson. Just encourage you guys to weigh in at any point that you want. Preston, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and members of council and members of the Planning Commission. Really appreciate y'all being here tonight on relatively short notice. This is, in my eye, a pretty exciting item. We have Paul Major and David Bruce with the Telluride Foundation here to present some updated concepts they have for a workforce housing project here in town. I'll let them kind of give all the juicy details, however they see fit, but they just wanted to introduce this. And I think from the staff level, we collectively thought that a joint work session for Paul and David to have a platform to present their concepts and get some, kind of gauge overall sentiment and get some feedback would be most helpful, given what they're looking to achieve with this project. But again, very exciting, and thank you, especially to the planning commission members for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Paul, please.
Great. Thank you, Preston. So Paul Major with the Telluride Foundation, and we're super excited to be here. Hopefully you will get excited too about this. There was a big, presentation in your packet and a memo, cover memo from Preston. But really, as Preston said, we're here to present the concept and get feedback. But, before we get into this, and I've just got a slide.
Yeah, I'll bring it up.
I would like you to shift a little bit of your thinking, because as we all know, a town is responsible for protecting the public interest. The codes, the regulations, the process is really there to protect the interests of the public. And so you have a lot of people coming through the doors and they want to develop something, and they want to do this or that. This project is about public benefit. So it's a little bit of a paradigm shift. It's to think, this is a public benefit project. How do we get it across the finish line? We all know there's affordable workforce housing crisis. There is no silver bullet out there to solve it. We've got to chip away at it. This is just one approach, one project, but it gives you the tools as a community to move forward and try to help solve that problem. So, we'll get the other one up. So it's called Yellow Brick Lane. It's on North Laurel. David will go through all the specs. The key slide we're going to pull up here is really about pricing for these homes for the eventual homeowner. So obviously we're coming to you to talk about the concept of the neighborhood. But what we really need you to keep in mind is we're trying to deliver homes at the most affordable prices so that a teacher, a town planner, a firefighter, people that are at the core of the community can afford to live where they work and own a home. Bring up the slides. We'll come back to that. Just as a kind of reminder of this approach, a lot of you've heard me talk about this before, but the basic approach is if you think about building housing, there's three costs. There's the cost of land, there's the cost of capital to build a home, and then there's the product itself. And so we're attacking the cost by eliminating the cost of land, by getting extremely low cost capital to actually build the homes. So we're getting financing through foundations throughout the state and the Department of Local Affairs at much below market rate. And then finally, we're packaging the house product in the building process in a super efficient way. So we're looking at panelized construction, we're looking at modular construction. Also, we can deliver the highest quality product, meeting the highest standards that are all electric, EV ready, PV ready, and frankly, there we go. There's the home prices. That will actually deliver a final product to be sold for these households. So our target household incomes are $45,000 to $95,000. If you translate that, when you talk about affordable housing, you always talk about AMIs. So you go 60% AMIs, the equivalent, what's the 100% AMIs, your average median income in this region. So we're trying to price these homes across these salaries. Over there on the far right is potential number of units per household income for the wages that are brought in. So with that, let me skip that and why don't I turn it over to David to get to the meat of it.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, good to see everyone out of the Zoom screen and real world. And thanks to the Planning and Zoning Commission for taking time to spend it today. I'm going to talk you through two different approaches of land use strategy or concept plan for this particular site. It's the western half of block 30 orientation, I'm sure y'all know, north is to the top of the page. Here is North Laura Street, Frederick Street, and Autumn. It's an historic residential district, and it's in the master plan a town core neighborhood. Next slide, please. And these I've shifted the orientation. So north is to the left of the page. You take the look out top of and in essence, we think that there are two viable options for this site. Option A with 12 units, option B with 16 units. And to put it in different terms, I think option A conforms somewhat well to everything that's prescribed in the land use code for a historic residential district, as well as what is specified for a town core neighborhood in the master plan. And option B is an alternative approach with a little bit more variety in building type, unit size, price range. And in essence, this is a strategy to add the most number of affordable units possible. In fact, spreading out the infrastructure development required for this site across 16 units reduces the per unit cost by about $50,000. So really what we want to bring to you today is two ways to think about this site. One is what fits well into the way the code is written out, and another which really maximizes the ambition of this project, which is to build the most units at lower AMIs. I think key to this discussion is a definition of what we are proposing to build, which is distinctly a townhome as opposed to a duplex or a fiveplex. The key distinction is the definition of the lot line, which extends from the property line at the bottom of the foundation through a fire separated wall to the top of the occupiable space in the roof. And that really, that's our ambition to sell these homes. There will be no rental units. This is a for sale program. And so by creating a townhome that we can split onto separate lots, we can then sell the lots as the home, a backyard, and a garage space parked in the back, or in the case of a fiveplex, a front porch, home, and backyard space. So this is key. And really there's some ambiguity in how you can interpret the code related to a townhome, specifically in dimensional requirements and lot sizes. But going back to those two schemes with 12 or 16 units, my interpretation of the code, the 12 unit plan really fits in what has been specified, and the larger scheme starts to have some variances required for deviations from that code. Just to talk through it quickly, you know, the thought process here was to create the form that you have on North Laura Street with a home, backyard, and a garage. That is sort of repeated just through this lot, with the difference being that there's two front doors in each home unit. So I think that is a pro of this particular scheme. There's sufficient off-street parking. These in the back it's a 3-door garage with a 2-bay on one side and a 1-bay on the other. And that is set back 22 feet from the alley, so you can actually fit 2 cars here and get it out of the public right of way. And as I mentioned before, it really conforms to a lot of these setbacks of what is written for a single family home in a duplex in a historic residential district, such as it exceeds the minimum lot requirements, it exceeds setbacks, with the exception being the party wall through the middle, which has 0-foot setback. But then again, the townhome is a use by right in this district. And another advantage here, particularly for this program, building workforce housing, is there's no shared space to dice up into some sort of HOA. So, you know, there would be the public right of way, which would go over the maintenance of the town, and then the individual property boundaries. The cons is it's a more expensive unit. There's significant infrastructure required to make homes on this lot work. This whole horseshoe here would all be new road, as well as the alley, water main, which would come here on the west side of the site, and a sewer manhole here with a sewer line running through that alley. So that's expensive, and the more front doors you can build on the site, the more that can be spread out to all the units and pass on to the homeowner. Another con of this plan is less diversity of the building type and character. We have ambitions to have color accents or sort of expression of each side of the duplex, so it looks like you have it, you can own the character of the house. But I think that is a con and contradicts a bit of the land use master plan, which really calls for a diversity in type and character of building stock. Next slide. And as a comparison, the real advantage to this plan is it's more units, and the cost to build is about $50,000 less per unit, and offers some variety in the type of home provided. The con is that there's deviations to both the land use code and the master plan. As a town core district, the recommendation for 1 acre is 6 to 12 dwelling units. Here is 16, so that's north of that. And especially on the biplex units, it's a smaller lot size. It's about 42% of that 3,000 square foot minimum lot size. In addition to 0-foot setbacks on every side of that building. Really, today we wanted to focus the discussion on overall concepts, the sort of land use strategy, the site planning, but we wanted to share with you some of the things that we're holding as important as we go through and hopefully move forward with the design process, which are creating a varied streetscape, staggering these front yard setbacks. As you see here, that helps get you southern exposure into the corners of the house rather than being in this sort of shady alley. We hope that there's some sort of light and electric color scheme, all to be determined and designed responsibly. We want sort of unique front doors and porches using solids and voids, so that if you're here and Mayor John Clark was here, there's some distinction to each home. We're really interested in xeriscape landscaping. We understand that water is a very sensitive issue in the high mountain west, and I think we can really put forward a forward-thinking proposal. We want these to be wired for electric charging vehicles, as well as photovoltaics, leaving it up to the homeowner if they want to put in a charger pack for an electric vehicle or install solar panels. But we think there's sufficient southern exposure. We want these to be ADA compliant. In fact, that's a requirement for DOLA grant funding. And we want to build all electric homes. Really think about the future of the grid, the Colorado grid transitioning to clean energy. Having these as all electric is a huge advantage, especially as we're trying to put forward a model for building affordable housing. And most importantly, we want to do this right. I think often affordable housing is pushed to the outside of towns. It's an afterthought, taking this as an infill site, and having a full-time team thinking about this. I think there's a chance to set a model for the rest of Colorado. So I really want to tag team this and frame it as a conversation, but it's extremely expensive to build right now. It's, in fact, we've been told the worst time ever to bid out a home. But there are a couple of things that we can do as a partnership that can really help bring down the cost to build, and therefore help us reach a whole different category of the workforce. One is, if this is of interest to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council, talk about a way to expedite the PUD process with potentially a joint submittal of a sketch plan and preliminary plat in by the end of the year. Another way is to support, despite the variances, a higher density proposal to cut the per unit costs. And then thirdly, this is a really exciting time to be working on a project like this because of all the state funding that is available, including what has been proposed through House Bill 1271, a two-step process through a planning grant and then an incentives grant, which gives a municipality between $500,000 to $1 million that could be put towards infrastructure costs, permits, tap fees, even parks. So we have significant infrastructure costs, and through this grant, we can really help the future homeowners and maximize the number of units we can build lower AMIs.
So there's tons more information in this slide deck, which I changed just to have a more streamlined presentation. There's a few appendices which show those dimensional charts. Everything, it's all the same information that Preston shared with you on Monday, but this is a bit of a just a re-presentation of it. And we can go to those appendices if the questions necessitate that. So.
I have a question under option B.
Yeah.
With the 5 townhomes on each end, what was your plan for minimizing or mitigating the mass of, in your schematic there, it's just a mass.
Yeah.
With no deviations, etc.
Yeah, the plan would be to have
That does not work well with our design.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the plan would be to have 2 different unit types. So you have on the east and west, where you have the side walls and you get windows, those maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, with a 2-bedroom option, these 3 in between. You're looking at 2 very different types of homeowners there. And then if it becomes a slightly smaller footprint, you can actually set that in and create a shadow line inside that mass. So, seen from above as an airplane or, whoever is flying, you would see it that way. But I think we can create a lot of character with those front elevations that becomes, somewhat of a compelling building. So I think the key to these site plans is you never actually experience it.
Is that a 1-story or
2-story?
Have you considered 3 in the middle and then 2 of the option A facing each direction so that you're
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
so that you
Double
have-
townhome, double
so
townhome.
3 here and then double townhome. It would give you 14 rather than 16, give you more. But I found myself wondering.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I think the reason that we doubled down on a larger 5-plex on size is because if you turn those duplexes, you lose the opportunity to have a spacious backyard and garage, which is the real selling point. So here you start to carve out, a wide range of options in the same lot, and I think it really just becomes being stringent through the architectural details of working on that front elevation. So I think if you're going to take the difference, then commit to it and actually offer that the variety.
Okay, other people, I'm going to take comments from the planning commission council first, and then the public weigh-in. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add on with Bill. Is it okay if I walk up there?
Please, yeah.
Is to point out a couple concerns that I have as a question. So can you go back to the option A photo, please? So what I liked about this one was at least on mine now. It showed the water, how it was going to connect to water and how it was going to connect to the sewer. The water came through here, the sewer comes through here. But hopefully you guys are planning on connecting up here with the new road. So this way makes more sense with the infrastructure on tapping into the water and tapping into the sewers. But if you go to option B, it's what option? This way the infrastructure would be set up differently, where the water and sewer would have to go both ways, because
I think what you do, and we've got a great partner in civil engineering, and we've worked through this quickly since a previous informal review with town staff. And so I actually haven't worked this through, but I'd be happy to have our civil engineer propose the way you do it. What I think you would do is put a public easement between this lot line of the duplex and here, and still bring all the sewer down through the alley and bring all the water through that. So you would actually pull out some
sewer through the alley has been proposed to us from Joanne and TJ as the preferred.
Oh, I'm not just like, yeah, I was just trying to add on with Phil, if the way he was saying it, it seems to make more sense. And then the other part of it was just, I was wondering why Frederick isn't going through, like, a whole block. So if, in case of an emergency, of course, coming in, they have a whole block to go around instead of backing out. Just, I don't know what's going on with Frederick Street, but.
Yeah, we're ending it there to service our alley. I mean, I think this is a key part of the conversation. There's so much infrastructure required, and it feels incorrect to put the cost burden for building all that infrastructure on the.
I know.
So I think that's where this grant comes in, and if we're able to, put in a great application, then the town can choose to do what it wants with that.
That being said, since Frederick doesn't go through, don't have parking in the alley. When I look at this option B, parking becomes a little bit of a concern to me. When I look at our master plan, one of the components is maintaining character of our neighborhoods. And like, I'm all in on option A, it looks great, like, let's get some affordable housing in. This starts to feel a little bit far afield of the character of the neighborhood on the ground.
Specifically, it's 33% more parking requirement for option B. And my guess is, of course, only 6 garage spaces for the 16 units.
Yeah, I think one way to look at it is for these double townhomes, they're, the more expensive unit might have a double bay garage, and then you can, no one who parks in the garage, you park between the alley and the garage. So, each of these has 2. The land use code says for any type of home larger than a single family or duplex, 1 parking space is required. So, I think the conversation here is, are we willing to deviate and look at creative solutions to this in order to reduce the cost to build for housing? So yes, parking is not ideal in this, but it fulfills for this 5-plex having 1 per unit, that fulfills it.
The reality is you're going to have many residents more. It's going to, I guess, to the point, is parking is going to become a real issue. That's going to not only change the character, but it could become problematic. Emergency personnel over the alley is quite a bit smaller than the road. So imagine it's mostly one-way traffic to get into these parking spots without bumping into each other.
And I understand the way the land use code is written. This is the far end of what that land use code was designed to do. When we changed that parking requirement, the idea was we wanted ADU, we wanted some of those like flexible use spaces. This is a really concentrated use of that 1 parking spot. And that's where it starts to change the character of the neighborhood. Does that make sense? Like the garages and that all feels good. This just feels like 10 units with only 1 parking spot in a single block feels like a high concentration of that.
And the other thing I think needs to be said, I mean, while I totally appreciate the idea of trying to maximize the amount of workforce housing we get, decrease the per unit cost, all of those things make complete sense. But we're talking about a half block of undeveloped property in a very sparsely populated part of town. And I have to say, I just feel like the impact on the neighborhood is just a little too extreme with option B, whereas option A is a whole lot more palatable.
In full disclosure, I'm one of the neighbors, like just so we're all on the same page.
There's a small technicality that you mentioned, EV charging stations for each of the units. I can see that on option A, we have the garage spaces. Option B, they don't have that flexibility. They have this.
The other issue for me on option B is the lack of storage space for 10 units and the resulting accumulation, if it's anything like me, that is a major issue for me, is lack of.
I was just gonna say Ridgway lifestyle.
Michelle?
I would have to agree, and what I see people saying isn't so much that we don't want to be flexible and work with you guys and don't appreciate the presentation that you're doing and the offer. It's also that we're concerned about the quality as you are, and we're seeing that this density could definitely create quality issues.
Well, and that's why I just stood up to interject that. That's really why we're here. We
Yeah.
want this feedback. You guys are the voice of the community. You know, we're presenting an option because it lowers the ultimate cost of the home. So here's an option. We could probably pack even more in there and lower the costs, but you know that that's too extreme. But these are, you know, that's why I asked for a little bit of a paradigm. I'm not saying advocating for this, but it's a little bit of a paradigm shift because we're trying to solve a workforce housing problem, right? So we're going to have to push to the edge of the boundary to make workforce housing work in a community. That's a given. And things like trading off parking for people where people can live, or those choices we're going to have to start to make. I'm not saying this is the right choice. I just wanted to keep planting that seed. These are.
On option A, when I looked at those garages, I thought, okay, we've already got a townhome on the front, so that's a lot of density. Could there be a garage apartment in the back? I mean, I don't know that people would go for that, but I see that working more than option B.
It becomes tricky. We really looked into that. I mean, the first thing, and I understand that there's a difference between what we might do in a PUD and the way the code is written, but right now for an ADU, it's a much larger lot, 6,000 square feet, and for a single family detached home. So a big change there. There's also a difficulty in our model where we're actually trying to take each one of these rectangles from the alley to the front right and sell them. And so if they're, you know, even if you could put an ADU just on one side, it would become slightly small footprint. It would have to have 3 stories to really make it livable. And you'd also need to sell that unit to someone who's making maybe, in order to recoup the cost of building the ADU and the home, you need to sell that unit for way more than our target. But we really try to get creative with the town staff, thinking about that ADU question.
I don't know how the space works, but just thinking about neighborhood character, thinking about parking, could you take the 4 units, the 2 townhome structures on the north end and do a 5-plex facing north? So essentially, instead of that 5-plex on the south, put another pair of townhome units. Then you only have 5 units that don't have 2 parking spots. They're on that kind of portion on the north end that you're not going to have a whole lot of through traffic through that's not in the, you know, in the development. And you're splitting the difference, you know, between 16 units and 12 units.
And is that lot to the north, light industrial?
Yes, exactly. It's facing to face the light industrial makes a lot of sense. It's a blend of your 2 options.
Yeah, it gets one more unit though, because
Yeah.
you need to, it's 13, you need 50 wide, so you only fit one more in, and these would become really cramped. And, you know, if you orient it in the other way, it doesn't solve it.
Right. No, I just trying to think through.
That's great.
I think back to Bill's point, it'll be smaller backyard with no garage for storage. I mean, the town motto is think outside, you can have half your possession outside. We don't have lots.
I don't know. I live in 500 square feet and I make it work. So
I'm also a half a block away from this project for what that's worth, and I'm supportive of it as well.
Yeah, I'm not anti the project by any means. I'm just trying to think through what's going on.
Just to contribute, I think we were thinking about the floor plans of these, and on the ground floor, basically providing storage. So, you know, it would be facing the back. We would need to work out the circulation from parking, but you know, some 12-foot by 16-foot room where you can stack up all your shelves and backpacks and skis and whatnot. You know, I think some of these things are addressed in the site plan, and some, you know, are in the next phase where we work with the design development and architecture. But, you know, I think all the comments are super
super valuable. And the whole reason we wanted to come in front of you was just to put these on the screen and see what sticks.
Maybe on B, you take Bill's plan on the south side and take one of those out of the fiveplex and break up the face of them. Would that help?
Sorry, you said that again.
Take one of those center units out of the fiveplex just on the south side and leave the rest the way it is. So you've got one less unit, break up the space a little. I don't know that that solves all the issues that people had, but it's something.
Yeah, and this is really a trade-off. With 12 units, you get that higher quality park.
Yeah, that's a really nice option.
And just as you guys are thinking about other comments on this, just a couple of the data points. So these are 1,200, 1,400 square foot homes, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, or 2 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. They're all deed restricted, so they're all got a requirement to meet that income level to qualify for file. You have to live in it 8 months out of 12. You have to work in the community. You have to actually labor. There's a definition for work. And then there's going to be a cap on the resale, 3% cap. And of that, and that will be annualized. So it will, appreciate over time. There'll be some equity growth if the market goes up. Markets don't always go up. We suspect there'll be a lot of demand, and then there'll be a lottery to get in. So people will qualify, based on their income and meeting all of those requirements. And our idea on the lottery is we want to give an extra ticket for people that work in the local school district, government employees, planners, managers, people like that, essential emergency workforce personnel, ambulance, if they're employees of emergency services, and then nonprofit healthcare workers. So we are trying to give them a little boost in the lottery system. Doesn't mean they'll prevail, but that's the idea.
But this does bring me to a question: who would administer the 12 to 16 units? Because I imagine staff wheels are turning here.
So this is not an HOA. These are for sale, as David said, right? You're going to go in, build these, and sell them, and all the rights and responsibility of ownership goes to that homeowner. The deed restriction will be managed by a regional housing authority. So we have been in conversations with the county because we're also looking at a project in Ridgway. They think we might be getting to critical mass. I think Preston said we already have about 40 units in Ridgway that have deed restrictions. So I think we're.
No, I'm sorry. No, we have one active deed restricted unit.
We're hoping
The number I gave was in the pipeline based on all that.
Okay.
We have 30 coming in space to create and a number of other different, but only one actually.
Right. So, with space to create, that's being deed restrictions being managed by Montrose Housing Authority. In the interim, we can partner with San Miguel Housing Authority, or we can work with the county, Greater Regional Housing Authority.
Or we could continue our relationship with Montrose since we already have a start on.
Right. Exactly.
I have a question about the deed restriction. What if someone works there, qualifies, lives there for 10 years and retires?
Yes. So there's two scenarios. There's multiple scenarios, as you can imagine. We are not interested in affecting anything. So if you get in and you're a preschool teacher, but all of a sudden you become superintendent, so you sort of exceeded that entry level, you stay in. We're not, the only thing we want to do compliance on is if you remain in the workforce. If you bought the house and you retire, there's a provision for that. Also, there are provisions for disabilities. So we've taken, best practices, we picked in Telluride, really working with DOLA and Department of Housing to kind of come up with something that's not too onerous. But we have to recognize you got to have rules that can be enforced, but transparent, and they've got to remain affordable.
This is a huge amount of work. It's impressive.
So I'd like to give the people in the audience an opportunity to speak, weigh in, Jeff.
Okay.
first question, Beth brought up, I was concerned about the one parking space per unit, but she addressed it pretty well. I think, concern is that Lower Street would have been built a long time ago, but it wasn't because there wasn't enough right of way. I believe that Lower Street's only a 30-foot right of way. It's probably half to the north, past Auto Street. And I'm in favor of that, but I just want to bring that up so the town's aware of it. I mean, is the town prepared to deal with that half of the street?
Actually, from Frederick to Otto is just 30 foot.
No, I think it goes more than that.
Well, it does, but I'm saying,
Yes,
you
right.
said from Otto. I
I meant the right of way goes more than that.
Have we approached the town or the landowner to the?
That was gonna be one of my questions to you guys. Have you reached out to the Wolves?
Yes, we have, across the landowner. You vacated this for the town, I think Joanne said, that was vacated by the town. This portion of the road. So we would
I
love
don't remember what we found. We did a little bit of digging. It was a long time ago.
It's a long time ago. And we proposed to the landowner, we have not got a response. So we want to design this road so it's half of a full road. That's specified by the town engineer, so it'll look like more of it. It does have to squeeze down because this is the lot line for the other.
And I think that would become a discussion and a recommendation from you, planning and zoning and the town engineer, where there's been no parking signs on it or something like that. But the west side would be the crest of the apex, going to a gutter, going to a curb.
Well, I'm not sure how you build a road with all the requirements of excavation and then layering right up against a property.
Yeah, I think even for construction, we'd have to ask if we can.
We'd have to get an easement or something. So I would hope that if we got far enough, they would be interested in talking to us about fixing that issue, but that's down, so no pun intended. Anybody else?
Just a long enough, yeah, I think if you show strong support, that allows us to go to the landowner and say, would you work with us? So,
Good point. Good point. Anyone else in the audience? Questions, comments? Pat?
I just, other people might be familiar with grant. Considering going after statewide, and it sounds like the legislature just recently authorized. Moving me to do, and that would, so your concept, best case scenario, is that grant, not have to go to the town for funding that the town might not already.
that's exactly right, thank you. So this bill 1271, it's cast at upwards of $1 million. We know your sewer and water fees are an enterprise, and they need to be paid for. It's not going to drop out of the sky. All of this money could pay for the labor of the sewer fees. So you could remain whole, but not charge us. On this project, I think the sewer and tap fees would be $400,000. And obviously, that goes right to the bottom line of the cost of the house. So we're trying to go after everything we can to reduce the cost.
And then the cost of putting in the sewer lines and whatnot.
We're gonna have to bear most of that. But every place we can work with the town, waiving of permit, waiving of any additional fees that you could waive, we want to do. Anything we could use that incentive money.
And you spoke about the recommendations of financing, but that's finance for construction, that's not financing beyond on the purchase.
So on the purchase side, because we see this as a soup to nuts, right? We see this as developing a model that can be piloted, how you build workforce housing in small rural communities. So we've got some funding from us, from other funders to do some of that due diligence, because we're spending a lot of money trying to figure out how to make this model work. Then there's the actual construction financing. So we're getting foundations from the state to provide capital at 50 basis points for the construction of all the. And then to your question, when we have to sell these homes, and a lot of these will be first-time home buyers, so they need homeowner education. They need to understand what a deed restriction is, and the limits that go with that. They need to understand how to go through the lottery, and then they ultimately need to get a mortgage. So for those households at 100% down to 60% AMI, we've got a special mortgage product from what's called a CDFI bank. It's going to be a 2.5% mortgage, 30-year amortized mortgage. Plus, there's down payment assistance to go with it. So we can buy down the mortgage for those entry-level homeowners. Plus, we can provide, much below market mortgage. And it just means, you can afford more house. The lower your mortgage is, the less down payment you have, the more house you can afford.
Well, I'm very impressed. Appreciate it.
I just add one note about the House Bill 1271, and it very much requires coordination with the Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council, because the way to become eligible for that grant is actually to vote 3 land use code changes from a menu of options that are sort of put forward by DOLA into the code, and then they're going to identify shovel-ready projects. So, it's not without cost. I think there are, and I will share all relevant information. I think I maybe have already with Preston, but there are things such as, less stringent requirements for accessory dwelling units, fewer parking spaces, larger lot coverage, things like this. So, and I believe there's 2 or 3 pages of land use code changes that come on that menu. But
has anyone compared current land use code with that?
No, but
there might be a number of people.
in understanding how much the town staff has on the plate, I'm more than happy to offer help through that process in whatever ways appropriate.
I think that this is 8 o'clock at night. We're in a town council meeting. I appreciate this. I think we all think this is a good idea. I think this is the wrong venue. I could talk for a half an hour myself on this, but I don't think that this is the appropriate time or place for this to be happening. I think that, I was worried, I'm here because I was worried about how this was going to be handled. I thought maybe you'd be steamrolled. I see some of the best ideas on this project coming out of this group. I'm not worried at all anymore, but I really think that this needs to go back to a normal process.
That was always understood. These guys asked to be here to get our input. They're taking our input. They've already said a couple of times that this is exactly why they're here. I don't think anybody expects that we're like making decisions tonight.
No, and I think you ought to support this 120%.
And can I add, Sean, these guys are asking us to figure out how they can accelerate the process. Staff has already recommended that they go through the process because we don't have another process, right? So I do think that this time is really valuable to figure out when you guys come with whatever you come with, that we're not 100% off base. And this time isn't an official channel to speed it up, but it is a way that we can work with our official channels to speed it up.
And thanks for mentioning that, because I think that's another really key point in the debate between option A and option B. As David has said, option A fits within the town's regs right now, and that makes it so that it doesn't have to be a PUD. The subdivision, do the hopefully a combined sketch plan and if we go to B, we almost have to go with a PUD, and that extends the process. So, I mean, that's something you guys have to decide, but I think that it's important to understand that.
Well, how dependent is this project on the other 3? There's can this be done standalone if the other 3, Nickel and Ridgway, do not proceed? Is this still possible, or is it based on the economies of scale of all 4 projects? No, we're proceeding already. We've already pulled permits for Norwoods. That's proceeding. Hopefully get this process going. We're going to work on Ridgway next and Nichols in the planes. So they're all proceeding. Our idea is to be as efficient as possible. I mean, our idea is to work backwards from March 15th to break ground. And can we get approval from you to break ground by March 15th? We've developed a scenario with staff that if we perform, they could do it. We have to perform, but we also need your blessing and your support, frankly, to, perform on your side too, to, push us through. Give us good input here. Let's go back to a plan so we can bring it to you. Accelerate the process.
In that case, simpler is better.
Absolutely.
And so if you start in December, you still get the grants, and you would that still be in place? And you could start in December, the grants.
Yeah, all of this is, so our goal is to, again, break ground in March 15th. So we just work backwards of everything that we need to do, whether it's funding, whether it's a queue in the construction, subcontractors or modular product or all of that. So it's just, put that all together.
And I'm sorry, December is the date that you want to come to hopefully have a joint meeting. And
No, it'd be just the planning.
just the planning commission.
Jim, you would just follow whatever precedent tells us to do.
I think the last we decided was potentially targeting December 1 as a submission of a sketch plan and preliminary plat. And then that would give 30 days through all the rocky and vacation-filled holidays to target a January series of meetings, both with PNZ and the town council. Really looking at, sometime mid-March, it would be amazing to start the site development.
Okay, Jim.
So anyways, when I look at this, for the habit lot, you've got 42,600 square feet. So a regular old lot is 3,550 square feet. And that makes sense. I like that 12 units. When you go down to 16, 2,662. That's small, I'm excited that you guys are thinking about breaking ground in March, building costs may be down, maybe to advantage that. And what I like about the 12 units is it's simple, sewer down one side, water down the other side. When I see you start to draw a line between those 5 units of an easement there, I think their storage area is going to be a little compromised. So, to that, there's no room there. You'd have to run it in the street, and I think the cost would be, it would be a huge increase. So I mean, I think you stay within, obviously, you've got requirements for 3 exceptions, so to speak. I would think they'll probably maybe half, a couple of those are regional use as you go through that, but I like where you guys are headed, and it looks good. I mean, I think there's still questions about this 30-foot road, how that works out, dealing with the wolves. It's a little bit of a wild card for sure, and getting everything done. But I should like where you guys are.
There's a lot of questions when it comes to just roads and water and sewer.
And I'm sure Joanna can answer.
I have, can I make a comment? On the roads, wouldn't the landowner further out have had to put roads in to do the development that he has slated and asked for an extension on? I was at a council meeting recently. Is it Glenn Pauls that owns that property out there? And he's had approval and asked for extensions?
For, who is it, phase 2 or 3 of the industrial park? And, honestly, I can't remember. I think that whole phase moving forward is predicated on getting the other half of the road.
Yeah.
Right, and so maybe that homeowner would,
I mean,
that
you
property
guys-
owner would work with.
I think
you
Michelle's
also.
point is, do you know Glenn Paul's property owner? So I figured you did. Talk to him about seeing if there's a way to collaborate on the timing of his return. The next phase of the industrial park.
The continuation.
The next phase of the industrial park.
Right, maybe.
This is a crew from Merrill. We're talking
No, the
north.
other way?
It's another piece of the puzzle. Paul, it's another piece of the puzzle of maybe getting more of the whole way. Yeah. Full way.
And you could approach Glen Falls, and I would think your project would be an advantage for him, as well as him speaking to them. You just there's the whole thing done, one.
Well, if he'd have gone first, he'd be looking at those roads, I think. I mean, I don't know exactly how all that works.
works, but being an adjacent property owner.
There's just potential there for, for other.
And it may be too soon for this, but someone mentioned to me that, maybe SMPA would be a player and help in some way. I mean, everybody needs affordable housing, right? Everybody has employees.
We've had great meetings with SMPA, and Terry's been part of a lot of this, partly around the ground source heat pumps, the all electric. So there's a lot that they're bringing to the table, so, improve the homes. So, it'd be great. Electric heat pumps are within the south.
It would be a ground source, so a 300-foot well, depending on the soil conditions, that taps at its stable 62 degrees of the subsurface. That's your baseline for heat. It depends on the tonnage of, it depends on the volume of the house, which relates to.
Okay, we try to, we don't need to get into that level.
Yeah, that's okay. Mayor, is there any Commissioner Cisco has had his hand up for a while?
Okay, I was just gonna ask if there was anybody on Zoom that wanted to weigh in. Ben, go ahead. Ben, you still want to make?
Okay. Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I actually lowered my hand, but
Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Just wanted to say, I think your conversation on this is directly on line of analyzing the impacts of the neighborhood, and it's fitting into the approval process combined with the need for a quick path to approval of whatever the options are deemed supportable. It seems like a mix of option A and B, or trending towards option B is probably the best use of the time and effort that all people are putting into this. But
Yeah.
I think you meant option A maybe, but
we heard.
okay, yeah, and so I'm following along as I'm like at the end of a 12-hour day. So apologies, but thank you. I think the Telluride Foundation has been really innovative and dedicated in this approach of pursuing these affordable and attainable housing options for throughout the county. And I think you guys in your discussions tonight are on the right approach. So
great, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just really quickly, I don't think there's a person in this room that doesn't think that this is a really exciting opportunity. We want to try and make it happen however we can. I think it's been a really productive conversation, and everybody has a lot of work at home, but that's what it's going to take to get this kind of innovation done. So anybody else on Zoom want to weigh in? Thomas or Kevin? Nothing you have to, just offering, because I forgot to look at Zoom. Anybody else on Zoom want to weigh in? If not, that's totally fine. Anybody else here? You guys feel like you've got enough information to go on?
I would like, one of your slides posed the question about higher density. We've seen a lot of projects come in here. I have to say, this one warrants higher density.
Amen.
You know, because there's so many come in with higher density, so somebody can make a profit. I think this would be a wonderful asset for the community.
Thank you for that, because that's exactly, this is higher density to lower the cost for the ultimate home buyer versus what raising the density so I can make more money.
And I think the people who could eventually move into this place would figure out a way to store the extra set of skis. So
yeah, but what about the 6 stand-up paddleboards?
And this is from somebody who's been on the circuit for 4 years.
Jim,
I've been down the road in some of these other kind of affordable housing things. I think it's incumbent on all of us who are at this meeting, when this gets out, the people in the area around us, you know, it's the same old deal. Nobody wants to step up, not my backyard.
It could be in my backyard.
Okay, good. I get more people than you. And we need to help sell it.
Yeah, be advocates
We need
and
to
talk
be
to your neighbors.
that help this along, because things get shut down. You know, all of a sudden, next meeting, there'll be 30 people in here. So we just need help out.
no, good point, thank you. All right.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just good, and I'm really happy to see this. I mean, I was very excited about the school district. Was able to have them there, but I see this as so important to the future for workforce, but also just maintaining any kind of economic diversity in this town. So
Yeah.
I encourage you to be creative and work towards this because boy, we need it yesterday. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for the review.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's late, but this is what we've been working towards, so we really appreciate all your input, and we'll start the process.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. All right. Still have about 10 things to do. Sorry? No, the next, we're taking up the landscaping.
Sorry.
Are we taking up landscaping? The only concern I have is putting off people that maybe have been waiting a long time to have their item come up.
Sure, if you all feel comfortable just keeping the agenda the way it is, we can certainly do that.
What's everybody's opinion? Stay with the agenda the way it is?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. All right, then I'm going to move to the original item 10, which is appointment of members to the Creative Main Street Group. And I believe Deidre is on the call to help us with that.
I am. Thank you, Mayor and Town Council, Planning Commission. In your packets, you have a memo that explains the background on this. I think most of you are familiar with it, that we created a new group to replace the creative advocacy team, to merge the community engagement pieces of both the Creative District and Main Street. And that is the group that you see in front of you, which we had 15 applicants. We are continuing with 14 requesting or being recommended for appointment to the new Creative Main Street Group. So there's really two pieces to this. There's creating the new group that replaces the Ridgway Creative District Creative Advocacy Team, the CAT. And that new group is the Creative Main Street Group. I think that's important to officially do in this meeting, as well as there is the appointment of the recommended members to the group, which you can see on the list in front of you. Does it make sense for me to read out who's on that list for people who are listening in and maybe don't have the packet, or do we just go with this? So Kevin Gramley would continue as the Town Council representative. Brenda Ratcliffe, Joan Chismeyer, and Amanda Gabrielson were all on the Creative Advocacy team and applied to be part of this new group. Hillary Lukowitz is officially representing the chamber. Then Sue Hush, Tammy Tuttle, Vanessa Backer, Mishi Countryman, Guthrie Castle, Jill McCord, Allison Etheridge, Ariel Bialik, and Clifford Pastor all applied to be part of the new group and have been attending the meetings. We had a series of facilitated orientation meetings, and they attended. So I think that's the request. There's those two items.
Great, thanks, Deidre. This looks like a great group. I'm excited for the new Ridgway Creative Main Street Group. And I guess anybody on council have questions for Deidre or anyone else on staff about this?
Do we have to form the Ridgway Creative Main Street? Do we have to?
Yeah, well, I assume we need a motion to.
Yeah, I think just a motion to form and appoint would be sufficient.
We could do it in one motion.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to
So I move to approve the creation of the
Creative Main Street.
Ridgway Creative Main Street Group with the 14 members listed as listed.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded. You will call vote, please.
Councilmembers Beck,
Aye.
Morelli. Aye. Gramley.
Aye.
Bacon. Aye.
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 Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye. All right, there you go. A new chapter
Great.
of the Creative District and the Main Street program in Ridgway. Love it. Thanks, Deidre.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. That takes us to item number 11, review and direction on June 2021 revision of long-term implementation plan and strategy for strategic master plan for the Ridgway Visitor Center and Heritage Park. Deidre, you're on for this one as well.
That's right. So thank you. There is a fairly long document in your packet, a memo that describes some of the background related to why this is coming to you all. And I think the important thing to point out at this point is that both the town council and the board of the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce requested some clarification related to the strategic master plan that was done in 2019 for the Visitor Center and Heritage Park. That plan, which is in existence and has been adopted by town council, continues. And what we're doing here is reviewing recommendations from the stakeholder advisory committee that met between, I believe the first meeting was in February or March, I can't remember exactly. But there were 4 meetings to talk about what do we need to clarify, and the recommendations which you have on your memo and also in the implementation plan, which could be shown on the screen as well for those who are not, who don't have a packet in front of them. The recommendations are, I think, important to review with council and for you all to be sure that these recommendations make sense to you, to look at if there are any changes necessary, but know that there was a group of about 15 citizens, including council and board of the chamber, who participated in the discussions. And this is what this group came to. And I can review those for you if you need that, or if everyone has read their packet. I don't need to review them all, but it's really not that long. The first 6 are really the ones that I'm talking about now. So basically, the group discussed at length the desire for a new visitor center building versus use of remodeled shipping containers that would be able to serve as year-round visitor information distribution points, and also could potentially have staff during the warmer months be present to be able to answer people's questions. After much discussion, the group decided that a visitor center would be a high cost, rather not necessarily prohibitive, but not necessarily desirable way to go. And the group felt that the remodeled shipping containers could serve as visitor information distribution points quite well, and thought that it fit in well, was already part of the design in the plan. So when we had the strategic master plan done, there were 2 options. And the first option was this idea of the shipping containers. The second option was build a new visitor center. And so we really had to decide as a community what we wanted to do with that. So that's the first recommendation, is to not build a visitor center per se, but to use these 2 shipping containers that were recommended in the plan as information kiosks. The second item, number 2, is to build an accessible restroom, an ADA accessible restroom that could be easily accessed from the parking lot, and yet was not right at the road, kind of blocking the area that one would see when you drove into that area, to keep the Heritage Park area visible. Item 3, as far as recommendation goes, was to actually remove the existing visitor center building. We had a fair amount of discussion about this because it is a historic building, but the group felt that the location of that building was not good for what we were trying to do on this site. The restrooms were rather difficult to make accessible, and it's not a great building. So the group decided that rather than remodel that building and have it serve a different purpose, they felt it would be the best use of the space to remove that building. So that's a particularly important point, I think, for council to think about and consider. A picnic shelter had been an option in the plan for the visitor center building, to basically remodel that old visitor center building and make it into a picnic shelter, but the group felt that that was really not a good location for a picnic shelter right next to the highway. But they did want to see a picnic shelter be constructed just further away from the highway, and they wanted it to include interpretive information about Ridgway's Ute heritage as well. Item 5 was if space allows to bring some sort of iconic attention-getting piece of art into the design. Originally in the design, there was a railroad car that was still sitting at Heritage Park, and that was kind of an iconic, eye-catching item, large. If you drove by that area, you saw it. And with that railroad car gone now, it seems important to still have something that could be attention-getting in the design, and we don't have that currently. And then item 6 was just really, we need some storage for supplies to maintain particularly the restroom and facilities at the park in general, and the park, some small space that seemed like it could be connected to the new restroom building. So those 6 lead to the 7th, which is really that in order to move forward with these recommendations, should council approve them, we'll need to have a revision done on the design concept, and we don't have that yet. I'm hoping that we'll be able to use technical assistance funding through Colorado Main Street to be able to do that, or we'll find some other way to do that. Last time we utilized Colorado Tourism Office funding. So those are the recommendations, and I think it's good to stop there and just see, how you all feel about those recommendations, what you think about them before we move on to the implementation plan, which is really incorporating those recommendations into what was there before.
Okay, thanks, Deidre. Again, comments, questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple thoughts on this. The first one is the shipping containers, and I understand the concept there instead of building an expensive new visitor center. The concern is a couple of things. One is some people find shipping containers somewhat revolting, although they are pretty hip these days as well. So the question is, what happens when it loses its hipster appeal? The second part is the public art, and I know that that's a big part of what we do here, and it's a big part of the town. Is that something that we could actually try and get somebody to provide for us rather than going out and paying for an expensive piece of art? The reason I say that is I know there's a lot of citizens who really don't appreciate the money that we put into the art that we have here, and see that it could be used better for the town. And so is there other alternatives rather than us ponying up money for an art display to, if somebody was able to put something out there, it seems like it'd be pretty prevalent. If we get that park all whipped up, it'd be a nice spot for them to have something to display, but not necessarily at our cost.
Deidre, can I address both of those, having been on setting many of these meetings? The shipping container issue I was going to bring up as well. In favor of the shipping container because the graphical renditions of the ones we looked at were pretty, you could hardly tell they were shipping containers. They were pretty well done with lots of interesting angles and facades. It wasn't just looking like a boxcar. It wasn't looking like a shipping container.
Okay.
Another issue that came up with regards to the art, and it's associated with one of the other points in one of the later plans, was potentially approaching the Ute Indians to, and or the museum, to actually cite a piece of their work or something of their choice. And it could be that those two things could be combined. In other words, giving them an opportunity to honor their heritage through a piece of art. So it could be that it's provided by others and not funded. Potentially. Deidre, did I get that right? No.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, I think all those things are possibilities. The implementation plan doesn't really define exactly how those things would happen. And the art piece, was if space allows, but it certainly could be, there's all different kinds of iconic, symbolic pieces of art or information that could potentially be in that space. These are just the recommendations from this group.
Two notes on the art piece. One, we can decide how we want to fund art when we get to the point where we're funding art. And then the second piece is just making sure whatever relationship we develop with these, we may need to be willing to pay for art that we're getting from them. So I see what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we understand that we might need to pony up So we can cross that bridge, I think, when we come to it. The question is, do we feel like a statement piece of art is worth keeping in the implementation plan?
It's interesting. I mean, I would throw out that, well, I've heard complaints about, I've seen, fortunately, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I Facebook comments like, what the heck, you got another piece of art in Ridgway? What the heck? And it's, it takes all kinds. People are, no matter what you do, people are going to find something to complain about. Ridgway is a creative district. It's an artsy community. And one of the things that we've learned during the time of the creative district is that too often artists are expected to donate art with the idea that it's good publicity, it's good PR, it's good advertising, when in reality, they get asked that way too often and they don't make enough money to survive on just their art a lot of the time. So I agree with that. I think we need to be prepared to pay for public art if we come up with something that we all can agree with as something we'd like to have there. And I think I totally agree with that moment that we decide what we want and where and whether or not we want it at all, he's down the road far enough that we need to worry about it. Plus, there are certainly lots of grants and public art programs that make it so that we're not spending valuable public funds that could be used for something else, even if we are paying artists. So I don't know if that helps your thinking, but that's my 2 cents.
And I think 1% for the arts programs are pretty, I mean, that's not like Ridgway being crazy artsy. That's just acknowledging the importance of art in public spaces.
Okay, and kind of getting back to the previous discussion on the Telluride Foundation and the need for workforce housing, how much is the town putting into that? If we put 1% in art, how much are we putting into housing?
It's a good question.
I'm not saying we don't need the art. I'm just saying there's enough people out there with concerns about it, and I think they're valid concerns. We have this need for workforce housing. We're a creative district. We need to support the arts as well. Absolutely. But we need to balance that and make sure that we're not going out on a limb with these expenditures. And we also need to be budgeting, look at seeing what we're doing for workforce.
Yeah, and I think we are. And I think if you looked at the numbers, we probably have 1%.
And we probably need to make the rest of the town aware of that as well.
Right. So, yeah, a lot of it is education.
Perception.
Yeah. Anyone else?
What's I'm trying to figure out the delta between the shipping container kiosks versus new building.
In terms of cost?
In terms of cost.
Ooh, the shipping containers, I believe, were $50,000 each. I think that's what's in the implementation plan. And a building, boy, I don't know if I remember what the estimated cost on that was, but it was certainly far more than that. Hillary, do you remember that from the cost?
I think it was somewhere around 400,000 to 500,000, which has probably gone way up since we originally had this plan approved.
So yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Keep in mind that the plan was approved in 2019, right, Deidre? Right, 19?
Right.
So.
And that went back to kind of piggyback on what Russ was saying. We just felt like we need a presence there for visitors, but we didn't want to invest too heavily in a building that residents weren't going to use. Is that a fair assessment of the discussion, Deidre?
I couldn't understand what you said,
Oh, I was
actually.
saying that part of our discussion was we didn't want to invest too heavily in a building that wasn't going to be used by residents. And when we could still meet the purpose of informing visitors through something else.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, other thoughts, questions, comments?
I haven't heard any comments yet about the removal of the existing visitor center building. And I am curious, I think that is an important topic. Just want to hear you all weigh in on that one too.
Supportive. As I recall, you say it's got historical background, which it probably does, but last I heard it was a pig barn. So yeah, it was its original creation. So I'm not that sure that's really the historical value we want to go face forward with.
It's an old building, but its value as a historic structure is pretty limited, I would say. So, and its destruction, its demolition is predicated on the fact that the overall effectiveness of that parcel is going to be vastly improved by removing it as an obstacle to seeing everything else that's going on. Yeah. Agreed. So I don't, is there anybody that has concerns about that? I think we're all of the same mind, either.
Okay, thanks. That's great. I just wanted to double check on that. So what I've heard so far is a little bit of concern about the public art piece and how that might go and how much money might go towards it. I heard Russ mention a little bit of concern about what would these shipping containers look like. And Russ, you may want to take a look at in that strategic master plan. There are some examples that are pretty fun, and there were additional ones beyond that that we looked at as well, that there's a lot that can be done with design on those, not just kind of plopping them down and leaving them the way they look. So I didn't hear anyone mention anything about the picnic shelter, but I think that I'm guessing that means you guys think that that is fine. The process that we went through on that and the recommendation. So it sounds like maybe we're ready to move on. In general, that I'm hearing you support the recommendations. Is that correct?
I think it is.
Okay. Then we can move on to talking about the implementation plan, which incorporates those recommendations then. And if you continue on past your memo, you move into a listing of the projects that we've completed so far, most of which, but not all of which, was completed with funding from outside the town budget. We have contributed some. There were matching funds required for some of those projects, and I didn't put a number there, which would probably be useful for you all to have how much it was actually contributed by the town, but it was, let me see if I can come up with it. It's probably been at least 70,000 would be my guess, has come from the town towards that 137,000. So it's getting close to half, I guess. And most of that was this year with the irrigation and planting that we did. So those are just, that's what we've accomplished so far on the implementation plan that we previously had. If you move on to the short-term section, the 0 to 4 year section, you'll see some items that are still in red text, and those were not supposed to be in red text. They were just supposed to be in black. Your eye will immediately go to them, but that's not necessarily what our focus is tonight. However, much on this list has been either added or changed a little bit as we've learned more, and these things are in our short-term, in our view. We can see what's happening with them. We do have an opportunity, and I'm going to come back to this after I explain it and go through the other short-term objectives, but we have an opportunity through, if we were to apply to the CDOT Revitalizing Main Street grant, which still has funding available in it, to purchase an ADA accessible restroom, what's called a pod, for about $85,000 if we purchase the ones that look pretty similar to what's in a lot of parks out west. You would recognize the look of those restroom pods, or we could customize something for more. So that's something I'll come back to talk about, but that is something we will need since we're going to be taking down the visitor center building, and we won't want to take down that building until we have some sort of accessible restroom on the site. We will need, as one of our very first items, probably best if it was the first, but we have this opportunity to apply for that grant, so I didn't list it as first, but we need to update the Heritage Park concept design. That will let us know what would happen in the space where the visitor center, the existing visitor center is once it's gone. It will allow us to figure out how to get that picnic shelter in there. There's just a variety of pieces in the recommendations that will need to shift some things around on that concept plan. We'll need to replace the fencing that we removed this year. I don't have a cost on that at this point. It's not a high dollar item, but it is something. It's just we don't know that exact amount. We will need to develop construction plans for the shipping containers, potentially for the restrooms if we don't use a restroom pod and we actually build something ourselves. For the picnic shelter, we already have construction plans for the self-standing signage and the photo opportunity space. So we've estimated $20,000 for that could potentially come through Colorado Main Street Technical Assistance. That's where we got the other construction plans developed, was through that. The self-standing themed informational signage is there. And that was on the plan previously, pretty much just like it looks now. The installation of the new visitor center kiosks, that's the $100,000 there for those two. And then working with the museum to incorporate elements of Ute heritage into the site design. And that's just that process. That's not the actual, there's no cost listed here for actual installation of that. It would depend on what that would become, what exactly that would be. And that's not actually added in even later in the plan. That's probably something we'll need to add later. So those are the short-term items. There's one more item on the medium-term list, the installation of the picnic area, which could potentially be part of an application to CDOT's Revitalizing Main Street grant. So that could move that up into the short term, but the other items on that list of medium term are likely to really be medium term at this point. At least that's what we think. So I kind of felt like, since tonight's a long meeting, just focusing on that short term part, which is where most of the changes are, is probably of greatest benefit. I don't think there's anything else that changed very significantly. Hillary, do you have anything to add on the medium term or long term that we really shouldn't miss?
No, I think you did a great job.
Okay, sorry if I charged right through a part you were supposed to do. I didn't remember what you were going to do. So, I guess, council, what I'm thinking at this point is that you have that implementation plan. What we're really asking of you tonight is to adopt the recommendations from the advisory committee primarily, and the implementation plan is really, that will continue to change and be revised over time, but it's the basic process that we'll go through to implement making this strategic master plan happen.
Yeah, thanks. That makes sense to me. Anybody else on council have concerns with, for instance, anything on the short term?
I guess the only other thing I see here is on your recommendations, one of them is getting rid of the existing visitor center. Yet that's worked its way down to, it's in the medium term at 5 to 7 years. And you're looking to have the new restrooms done by fall 2021?
If we, yes.
I got the new restrooms. And it's one of your top recommendations.
You're surprised that the restroom is, or that that the demolition of the visitor center isn't higher?
Demolition of the visitor center. If in fact the new restroom is going to be in by 2021, fall 2021, as it shows here in the short term, why do we have it pushed out to 5 to 7 years to destroy the visitor center?
DJ, I can speak to that.
Go ahead.
So right now, the visitor center does not have ADA accessible restrooms, and they are not accessible when the building is not open. So that solves an immediate need. And then we've done about $10,000 in renovation work in the building this year, which is a partnership with the town. That really just puts enough Band-Aids on it for us to be comfortable with that space for another 5 years, because we know that it's just going to be a large cost to get demo that building and get the shipping containers in and to design those. And that so far there's no great grant funding sources for that. So we just kind of pushed it off for that reason as well.
Yeah, we can't take the building down, the existing visitor center building down until we have those new visitor center kiosks designed and then installed. So that's in the 2 to 4 year time frame. So we had to push the demolition of the visitor center a little bit further out than that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And if I can add my 2 cents, so the ADA accessible restroom being constructed in 2021, I think that came out of the advisory committee, mainly because the CDOT revitalization this grant program through CDOT, which we've already applied for, I think in 2020, we're eligible to apply here. And, this is pretty much on here to see if there's, this is for a lot tonight, but the appetite to go for it sooner rather than later. Don't know how long those revitalizing Main Street grant funds will be out there. Another thing to keep in mind is applying and administering a grant is a lot. It really is a lot. We have the Main Street Open for Business grant we're going to talk about here in a minute. We have this potentially in the pipeline. We have the CDOT 1271 grants for affordable housing that we are tasked with looking at now. I'm not the business of making excuses, it's a lot. So I don't know if it's realistic for us to get to go for this grant in the fall of 2021, but so this fall, but there's potential for it. And this is just a guiding document. There's nothing that says that it has to happen in the fall, but it came out of a recommendation based on the available grant funding. Certainly hope that it's available past the fall and then 2022, that'd be great, but really don't know. Would you agree, Deidre?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for that, Preston. That's really helpful. You certainly have loaded up staff with a lot of responsibilities, and last thing we need to do is pile in a bunch more. So, but it's always a tough call when you have an opportunity to get some funds to get something done that might not get done otherwise. So yeah. Anyone else have concerns about anything on the short-term list or the medium-term list that might be related? Doesn't sound like it. So we're, let's see, anybody else on Zoom have any comments, questions? Want to weigh in? Hearing none, we need to have a motion to adopt the changes in this implementation plan, right?
I move to adopt the recommendations from the Visitor Center Heritage Park Advisory Committee, therefore amending the strategic master plan for Ridgway Visitor Center and Heritage Park.
Second.
We got a second already. Kevin, thanks. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Beck,
Aye.
Borelli,
Aye.
Bramley,
Aye.
Lincoln,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Myers,
Aye.
Meyer.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Deidre. Thanks, Hillary. Appreciate you hanging in for this.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Council. And I also wanted to acknowledge and thank all the folks who participated in that stakeholder group, there are some of you who are here tonight who I see. So I just wanted to mention that, and there are others who are not, but it wouldn't have happened without some great discussion from our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Deidre. I appreciate you bringing that up. And we at the town council certainly appreciate all of our volunteers hugely. So yes, thanks for your participation in this, and look forward to seeing it further developed. That takes us to item number 12, review and approval of submittal of SB 21-252 Main Street Open for Business Program Heritage Energy Grant application. Person just mentioned this, and this is in our packet, so take it away, Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I really don't have much to add outside of what's in the memo. This really is I don't know if Deidre's still on, I can't really tell now, but Deidre, please, if you're on, correct me or feel free to add if I miss anything. Really think this is a neat opportunity for the bank building, which is a prominent part of our downtown area. With funding from SB 21-252, DOLA is looking to support efforts by local governments and regional collaborations to engage in small business relief through what's known as the Main Street Open for Business, acronym MSOB program. It's an initiative intended to support facade improvements and energy efficiency projects for businesses in the state's traditional downtowns, of which Ridgway fits the category. A total of $750,000 is available for the 3 Heritage Energy pilot projects. Eligible entities are the city of Leadville, the city of Trinidad, and the town of Ridgway. So each of them can request up to $250,000 with a scalable match for the Heritage Energy pilot project identified in their downtown. Here in Ridgway, we have the bank building. And the match requirement is 20% of the individual project costs, and the owner of the bank building is providing the match. But for the bank building to be eligible for this grant opportunity, the town must formally apply to be the fiscal agent. So essentially the town would be the fiscal agent and would simply pass through the grant funds to the bank building development team. And I already mentioned that the bank building owner is planning to provide the match. Town staff will have to, with help from the bank building development team, administer the grant and find a way for them to actually request funds, draw down the funds so that we can request the funds from no one. So pretty straightforward. It's a really neat opportunity. I don't know if anyone from the bank building development team is on Zoom. They may be. Sandra said she may be on, and I think Deidre's still on. I don't know why I can't bring it up on the screen. There's Deidre. Okay. Deidre, did I miss anything?
That was good. The only thing that you didn't mention, Preston, was just what the funds, the $250,000, what they're planning on using those funds for. And it's primarily, it's facade improvements and energy efficiency really together. They're planning to work on the windows, replacing windows, and I don't know what the word is, refurbishing windows, I think is part of it, in the bank building, as well as doors and the storefront part of it where Amulet Arts has been. So basically the west side of the building and the south side of the building will be where the work would happen, and also repair of the brick on both sides of those buildings. That's what they have at this point in that application.
Okay, I see someone just designated as JN has their hands up. Who's that? Oh, Jake Neese.
Hi, yeah, this is Jake Neese. Sorry, logging in from a different device here, but just wanted to recommend that as part of that, perhaps they could do a full energy audit to identify the energy efficiency measures that would be most bang for the buck, instead of just going for window replacements automatically. An energy audit's a couple $100, and that could actually be a real full force multiplier. So wanted to encourage that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jake.
I believe an energy audit is part of the process that all the Heritage Energy pilot projects are involved in, but I will double check on that, Jake.
That would make sense. Thanks. Anyone else on Zoom want to weigh in? Question, comment? Okay. Anybody on council have any further questions or comments? Seems like it's a really good thing. I'm sorry that it's more work for staff, but it seems like everything that goes through DOLA has to go through a governmental entity. So it's just part of the cost of doing business with them to have to be the fiscal agent. Hopefully it won't be too much of a hardship.
One quick thing for Deidre, it's not much in the scheme of things, but San Diego Power offers a rebate on the energy audit fund. So if you're a few bucks out of that, I think it's $150.
Thanks, Terry.
Pay for a brick or two.
Hearing no other comments, somebody want to make a motion? I move to approve submittal of SB 21-252 Main Street Open for Business Program Heritage Energy Grant Application to the Department of Local Affairs. I think Angela beat you to it. River, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hurstak,
Aye.
Morelli,
I,
Bramley.
Good.
Bramley,
Put a thumb up.
oh, we did, okay, Lakin,
Grambling.
I,
Skylar. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Right. Okay, thanks. That takes care of that. Thanks, Deidre. Again.
Thanks.
Thank you, Deidre.
Moving on to item number 13, review and action on revocable encroachment permit for the use of town property related to Ridgway Space to Create project. TJ's name is on this, and I believe we have both Mark Klutz from Stryker and Andrew Michelson from Space on Zoom as well to help us go through this.
So I'll actually take the lead on this, Mayor.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you, Mark and Andrew, for being on. Andrew's in Minneapolis, and it's pretty late there, so thanks, Andrew.
He's actually on vacation in
He's
the
on
north
vacation.
woods of Wisconsin.
Wow, so
Thanks for being here.
So before you use a revocable encroachment permit that, if approved, would allow for ArtSpace's 6-inch water service line for the fire suppression system to run parallel under the town right-of-way sidewalk for approximately, I think it's 40 feet before turning and entering the building. According to the National Fire Protection Association, the original plan for extending the existing service line into the building and angling it to get over to the water route allowed or prohibited. The NFPA does not allow a fire suppression service line to run more than 10 feet into a building. And so the contractor, Stryker and company, and the town have pretty thoroughly evaluated alternatives. And while this option, you know, from the town's perspective, this option is not desirable, but it is preferred to abandoning the existing water tap and cutting into the right of way to install a brand new water tap and service line. There's really no precedent for a private water service line running parallel into the town right of way. And it really does deviate from the town's standards that we have in place. So that's the gist. And so again, before you use this permit, pretty well to consider.
Okay. I don't know whether it's Mark or Andrew that we want to tackle this, but I think the question we probably all have at some point, some level or another, is it not possible to relocate the place in the building where the water needs to go to, so that we don't have to have the private water line under a town right away?
This is Mark. So yeah, I can address that part. We have looked at relocating the fire entry room, which is what it would be, which is currently on the north side of stair on the southeast corner of the building. We could look at relocating that. What it will do is, if we relocate that to a new room in a new location that works with the NFPA, it will take away from the community room, which is part of what the town's function will be for celebrating different events moving forward. So it'll take approximately 100 square foot out of that room and limit that space. So that's the only option to relocate that, and without getting into the right of way, abandoning the existing tap that was installed originally and putting in a new tap.
Okay. That's obviously not preferred option either, but this is a tricky one. Does everybody on council understand the issues here? And
yeah, I was gonna just ask whose responsibility it would be if there was a leak in the water line, like if they had to jack, like destroy the sidewalk, with who would cover repairing the sidewalk, stuff like that, to get to the privately owned water line that is under town property.
good question.
Well,
The fire lines are the beneficiaries line over the.
So it'd be their responsibility.
So it's their responsibility to fix the sidewalk.
There would be a construction encroachment permit to get to it, and you'd have to put it back. It would be yours to fix.
Okay.
we certainly don't want to lose square footage of our community space that's pretty small already. I guess the only other concern I have is there a precedent being set here that could come back to bite us in the future? My sense is probably not, because this is a unique circumstance.
Yeah, I would echo that, and then combine with that as you get a public benefit or perceived public benefit with this entire project. So.
Okay. Well, I see Andrew's hand up. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to also add that a big driver in avoiding our relocating or placing of a new tap is to not disturb the improvements that were put in place as part of the ramp up project. So it's leaving in place all of the street improvements and the sidewalks there, save for where we need to put this line in. So trying to balance disturbing of what is relatively new infrastructure, understanding that this is outside of the town's preferred course of action typically, but as Preston, I think, aptly put it, it's a preferred route. It's not necessarily our first choice either, but we're trying to balance code requirements and the local benefit as well. And I'm not sure who did say that the public benefit of the project overall and keeping the square footage activated on the first floor is something that we're trying to maximize. And do also just want to overtly say that ArtSpace does recognize that as a beneficiary of the line, we do understand would take on obviously any costs and work associated with future repairs. So that's something that we're prepared to do in any case, whether it was coming directly into the building or into the right of way as we're requesting here.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Are there any potential amendments we could add to the motion that would restrict this from being something we did on a regular basis? More so?
No, these encroachment permits, I think it's a great question, but these encroachment permits, they're a case-by-case basis. And so I think we've established that for the record. And when somebody comes into the future and they say, hey, what about this? We've got this meeting to show the analysis that you guys did to determine this. And next case, you'll have to evaluate on its own merits.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks, Bill. Well, I don't think there's any more beating of this dead horse. I move to approve the revocable encroachment permit for use of town right away.
I'll second that.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Beck,
Aye.
Borelli,
Aye.
Bramley,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye. All right, passes unanimously. There you go, guys. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Andrew, for taking the time out from your vacation.
It's my pleasure. Have a good night.
Thank you too, Mark.
Thank you.
All
Good
right,
night.
moving on to item number 14. Review and action on Colorado Department of Local Affairs use covenant and regulatory agreement related to Ridgway Space Create project. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer, but Preston, you want to?
Yeah, happy to. So I reviewed earlier, this is a no-brainer. Pretty straightforward. Again, related to the Space to Create project. So Andrew probably left a little prematurely. So since financial closings, ArtSpace has been working with a bunch of different partners, but specifically DOLA Division of Housing to finalize the various grant documents for the money that the Division of Housing is committed for the project. And Division of Housing is requesting that as a condition precedent to the disbursement of the funds, the town needs to execute and record the agreement before you with covenant to ensure that the rental and occupancy limitations are met, and those occupancy and rental limitations are in line with what, or those restrictions are in line with what was approved with LIHTC financing, the low-income housing tax credit financing with CHAPA. So that's the gist.
Great. I'm sorry, Bill, I saw your name was on this. Did you have anything you want to add?
No, I think Preston just did that to keep my engagement, but he did a great job with the memo. Sorry about that.
my mistake. Yeah, just as a matter of course, is there anybody on Zoom in the audience that has any comments or questions? Seeing none, is there someone who wants to make a motion?
I move to authorize Mayor Clark to sign the DOLA use covenant and regulatory agreement.
Second. You guys are tag team. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmembers Beck,
Aye.
Rowley. Aye. Bramley,
Aye.
Lincoln.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye. Great, thank you. That passes unanimously. Moving right along. Finally, back to the ordinance number 06/2021, enacting a new chapter 7-7 of the Ridgway Municipal Code titled Landscape Regulations and amending chapter 6-1 Building Regulations, chapter 6-6 Residential Design Standards, chapter 7-3 Zoning Regulations, and chapter 7-4 Subdivision Regulations. Is TJ taking this, or do you?
It's actually Katie.
Katie.
Yep.
okay.
That's going to be me. Hi, everyone. So this is Katie Shores here. I'm with CPS, the planning consultant for the town, and I'll be tonight presenting on the landscape regulation updates. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen, Preston, so hopefully you get this. Are you guys all able to see that?
Started to, and then it didn't pop up.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, again, I'll be presenting the work that was done on the landscape regulations.
Katie, actually, we don't see it. It started to pop up and then it went away. So
Okay, let me try one more time. How about now?
Yep, yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'll briefly cover the background, the intent, and the proposed implementation to get us all up to speed. And then I'll go ahead and dive into the proposed updates by discussing things in general categories. Those are the 6 categories listed there. And then I'll get into what was covered in the updates. That's all in the staff report that you guys should have a copy of, so you should be able to follow along with us. And then at the end, we'll have some time to discuss if you guys have any questions or thoughts. So first up, background and requests. So the research and discussions about landscape regulations have been ongoing for a couple years now. Shay Coburn, the town's previous planner, had done a lot of work to prepare information on how jurisdictions were addressing landscaping and what would work for the town of Ridgway. We at CPS spent a lot of time evaluating these notes so that we could draft regulations that seemed to fit the community's needs. And what came out of this work was a comprehensive code update that addresses the landscape regulations for the town based on feedback from staff and elected officials. And what we found is that by updating these regulations, this will help to achieve the following things, which are the goals of the Planning Commission and Town Council, the 2019 Master Plan and 2020 Strategic Plan goals, promoting water conservation, creating flexibility and clarity of regulations for community members, and then also increasing ease of implementation and enforcement for staff. At the last Planning Commission meeting, when this item was last discussed, which was on June 29th, the Commission recommended approval of the landscape regulation updates to Town Council. And again, as I touched on earlier, there's a staff report and that goes into details about the updates and where and how those changes will occur throughout the code and elsewhere. And then what I'll be going through tonight is just a high-level presentation of these updates. And then lastly, tonight's task is to review and discuss the regulations and decide whether it's ready for approval by Town Council or whether it warrants another discussion. So touching on implementation real quick, this will impact several sections of the Ridgway Municipal Code as well as the commercial design guidelines. You'll find a copy of the new landscape regulation text in Exhibit A, and Exhibit B includes the detailed and comprehensive list of how those changes will be made both in the code and in the design guidelines. So now getting into a deeper discussion on the regulation updates, I'll get into specific changes about each of these categories, and I'll just run through each category separately here. So first up is code structure. Potentially this is the most prominent change that's being recommended, is restructuring of the code to consolidate all landscape regulation information into one new chapter. The current code language is scattered in various places throughout the code, which makes it confusing and inconsistent for those who are looking to understand their property requirements. So where you'll find a bulk of the landscape requirements right now is in 6111, which deals with the building regulations, and 664G, which specifies residential design standards. These two locations have mostly the same information, but there are some subtle differences which can make it really confusing for reader. So what we're recommending with these updates is to consolidate all the code language related to landscape regulations into one new chapter. This will live in Title 7, which is the planning and the zoning title. And this will become, again, its own new chapter. It'll be expanding on some of the existing landscape regulation language, and then also incorporating a lot of new information dealing with major issues such as water conservation and elsewhere. So we think that by dedicating an entirely new chapter to the regulations will elevate the importance of them, as well as provide one location for all standards, calculations, and requirements. This will ultimately help people in their understanding of the regulations, as well as for staff and elected officials to be able to administer them more easily. So touching on the category of water conservation, in our evaluation of the existing regulations, we found that while the intent of the current code is clear that water conservation is a priority, the language isn't strong enough and doesn't provide a clear way of implementing these things. So given our understanding of previous discussions, what we've gathered is one of the main reasons for developing these new regulations is because the town and its residents value water conservation and find it as an essential issue to tackle. So as part of our work, we're focused on developing both the language and standards that will help to incorporate water conservation through low water planting and landscaping requirement reductions. Water conservation is actually addressed in many new areas in the code and in this new chapter, and that'll again highlight the importance of this topic and provide a way of implementing stronger enforcement. Touching on the category of minimum requirements, what we found in evaluating the existing code is that there's only one residential zoning districts which have minimum landscaped area requirements. So one of the biggest changes we're proposing with these updates is to add a table, which is what you're seeing here on the screen. This is called the landscaping requirements table, and this will live in this new chapter 776. The table includes minimum required landscaping area broken out by zoning category, and it also includes both live and non-live ground cover requirements. It also includes, you can see that there's minimum tree and shrub requirements as well. So the strategy, going back. The strategy for calculating these minimum requirements was to use the inverse of the maximum lot coverage. So for example, your zoning category R has a 50% maximum lot coverage. So therefore we took the inverse of that, which is 50%. And then based off that, we'd calculate the live and non-live ground cover requirements, which in this case would be 20% for live and 30% for non-live ground cover. When dealing with larger lots, we thought it was appropriate to put a limit on the landscaped area since those numbers could be exponential. So we've chosen 1 acre as that maximum lot size for required landscaped area, meaning any property over 1 acre would only need to meet the minimum requirements of a 1 acre lot. To help explain and visually show what these percentages mean, we've developed a series of scenarios to give you a sense of how the regulations play out on lots. And I'll go ahead and save that for the end, and then we can get into a discussion about those at that point. Again, on the minimum requirements, just the last thing to touch on for this category is that we've added a new section after the landscaping required section, which is now called the general landscape standards. This takes it even further into the required landscaping and discusses standards such as minimum caliber of trees, species diversity, irrigation, screening and buffering, existing plantings, and so on. We've also added sections on parking lot and a right-of-way landscaping standards to help clarify things like parking islands and street tree requirements. So the category of landscape plan and applicability, the existing code requires very little when you submit a landscape plan. So with these updates, we've built off the existing regulations and now have actually dedicated a section for landscaping plan requirements. This includes a comprehensive list of items that are going to be required so that staff can effectively review and analyze the proposed landscape plans. We also found that in terms of applicability, it's a bit ambiguous as to what triggers the need for a landscape plan submittal. So these updates now dedicate a section on applicability, and it makes it very clear when a landscape plan is required. New landscape. We've also included a statement in this section requiring that any policies adopted in documents such as the Water Conservation Plan and the Master Plan still need to be adhered to in addition to these landscape regulations. And this is just one more example of how interconnected the landscape regulations are and how these updates will all be tied together. This category is require versus recommend. So the language in the current code is pretty passive, using words such as encourage and recommend. And while the intent may have been to implement the landscape regulations as mandates, it's not currently read as such. So with these updates, we've revised the language to be more active, stating that things are required rather than just recommended. This seems to align with previous discussions, and Planning Commission agreed that the stronger language is preferred in this case. It's a hard thing to balance, imposing the strict requirements or any type of undue burden, but we feel that the proposals are fair and equitable for the different zoning districts. And we feel it's appropriate to update the code language to be more enforceable rather than just providing recommendations. The last category to cover here is deviations and exceptions. So the existing regulations only mentions one opportunity for a deviation for landscape regulations. That's for the historic business zoning district, which says that there's no minimum tree requirement, but it's pretty unclear whether there are additional requirements that are exempt, such as shrub requirements. So we've updated the language to add a note about the landscaping requirements table, which states that no minimum landscaped area is required, but that standards such as right-of-way and parking standards would still apply to that HB zoning district. A few other exceptions or deviations were added. They'll include things like affordable housing, non-residential uses on properties zoned FD, high water turf in areas of high water use. And then there's finally a general administrative approval for a deviation up to 10%. This will be at the discretion of the town manager. So with that, I'll go ahead and get into the scenarios real quick so you can kind of see how each regulation will play out on different zoning districts. And this isn't intended to go in the code itself. It's really just for discussion points here. So the first scenario you can see here, it's scenario 1A, and there's actually a 1B because it's showing the same lot here, but it's showing different scenarios where this first one is 1A, showing the existing regulations and how those landscape regulations play out on this particular lot, whereas this 1B shows the updated code language and how those regulations play out. So you'll notice that the existing regulations in this 1A, this is a residential lot. There are minimum tree requirements, which are currently 1 per 2,000 square feet of gross lot area. So in this case, they would be required 4 trees. But as you can see, there are additional requirements for front yard trees and then side yard trees as well, which in this case kicks it up to 5 total trees for this lot. And then you can see there's a minimum front yard ground cover of 50% and side yard ground cover of 50% as well. There's currently also a maximum front yard stone or rock cover requirement, and same with the side as well. And then when you take that same lot and you apply the new landscape regulations, you can see the calculations cut down quite a bit. And what we're showing here is in that gray area is the minimum landscaped area. And then so that's taking the maximum lot coverage, which is that 50%, and then doing the inverse of that, which comes up with that 50%, which is the minimum landscaped area. And then based off that minimum landscaped area, you take 20%, which is that minimum live ground cover. And that's the cross hatching there. And then the minimum live ground cover is 30% of the yard. And that's that diagonal cross hatching there. And then in this case, because this is a 6,500 square foot lot, you take the minimum landscaped area and you calculate the minimum number of trees, which in this case would be 2 trees required and 4 shrubs required for this lot. And then I'll go ahead and skip this. We can go over this one at the end. This is pretty similar to the residential district, the one we just went over. But this one I think is important to go over is this general commercial lot. So this is a different zoning district. This is for your commercial retail business. And here you can see this is about a 4,500 square foot lot. Now here, the maximum lot coverage percentages are different. So in this case, they have a maximum lot coverage percentage of 70%. We use the inverse of that to come up with the minimum landscaped area, which is 30%. And then again, the live ground cover and the non-live ground cover are at 10 and 20%. Now, in this case, the minimum number of trees is 1 per 2,000 square feet. So they're only required 2 trees, but in this case, because they have two the 2 islands, parking islands, they're required to have 2 trees per island, which kicks up the number of trees to 4 total. And then the last scenario here to go over is to show you the a larger lot. So in this case, it'd be over an acre lot. It's a residential zoning district again. So same percentages here where it's 50% of it needs to be landscaped, which is that gray area. And then what you'll see is there's a reduction because it's over an acre. We've reduced it to be 50% of that 43,560, which means that 21,780 square feet needs to be covered in landscaped area. 20% of that is live ground cover, 30% non-live ground cover. And then again, you can see this, the tree and shrub calculations are 1 per 3,000 and 2 per 3,000 as well. So I do have a couple discussion points we can go over, but I do want to kind of open it up and ask if you guys have any questions or things you want to go over. I'm happy to go over the scenarios, or we can talk specifics about some of those changes.
Anybody have any comments or questions about the information so far? All clear as mud, right? Yeah.
I do like the bringing all the landscaping stuff into a single place. Hunting it out over the coast is onerous.
The stronger language is good too.
You agree? Okay. So
I kind of like the graphical examples, though. I don't know if they could be part of the document when I was building it. That would have been helpful to interpret it.
Did you hear that, Katie?
Yeah, so it sounds like the graphics are something you think may work in the code or would like to see added to the code.
Or appendage or.
Do they need to be added as code, or can we get them and put them on the website?
Or it could be in our packet that we give to homeowners when they're taking up bills.
Exactly. Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion, but
I think that makes
point
sense.
taken.
But I agree. I don't think necessarily need to be in the code.
But I do think they need to be accessible, because when you start, I'm a numbers person, and when you, maybe it's 9:30. But if you start throwing out 20% of the 30, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Especially if it's all right, take it away, Katie.
All right, great. So the next steps are Town Council has a few options here that are listed out in the staff report. The first is to approve as presented. Second is an option to approve with conditions. And the third option is to continue the item for discussion at a future Town Council meeting.
Everybody's feeling. And I've looked at this before we count the planning commission. I'm pretty happy with where it is right now. Everybody else okay?
Yeah.
I think we're interested in approving it as presented, Katie.
Perfect. Okay, great. That's all I have for you then.
Okay. So unless there's further, well, that's a good point. There's nobody here, well, unless Liz has any comments. Anybody on Zoom have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion. Simply, or
I don't think
move
so,
to
yeah.
approve the
first reading of ordinance.
Yeah, to be introductory.
Introduction, sorry.
Move to introduce the new landscaping requirements as provided by CPS in the August 11, 2021 council meeting.
Would be ordinance number 2021-06.
So moved.
Let's second that.
Getting late. All right, motion made and seconded.
2021.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmembers Beck,
Aye.
Morelli,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
All right, thanks, everybody. That was a deep one, and thanks, Kate, for guiding us through it.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Thanks, TJ.
All right, so that takes us to number 16, ratification or amendment of the rescission of emergency restrictions on burning and fires within the town of Ridgway. Preston?
Yes, sir. So July 23rd, town of Ridgway joined Erie County, GMUG, National Forest, and a variety of other jurisdictions in coming out of fire restrictions, state 1 fire restrictions. And so that's now subject to your confirmation or amendment, however you see fit.
I move to confirm the rescission of emergency restrictions on burning and fires within the town of Ridgway.
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Beck,
Aye.
Morelli,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Bacon,
I abstain, I missed the discussion.
There was none.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye. All right, thanks, everybody. And thanks, Preston. Then we have the new item number 17, which is the water restrictions one, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So at the end of the day, staff doesn't feel that the trigger conditions for the mandatory water restrictions are still being met. Demand is not exceeding system capacity at this point. We're not drawing as much water out of Lake Oak. So I was talking about this with Jeff Rivera yesterday, and he gave you some numbers today to really inform this. And so staff feels comfortable coming out of or reverting back to voluntary water restrictions, or however you all feel.
What's everybody's feeling?
I'm good with that.
I think we should maintain the voluntary though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I think we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future. So we're all in agreement?
Yes. Move to confirm the rescission of mandatory water restrictions back to voluntary within the town of Ridgway.
Perfect.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Please, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmembers Beck,
Aye.
Morelli,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Passes unanimously. That takes us to the next item, technically 18, but anyway, discussion and potential appointment to the Colorado Municipal League Policy Committee. I'll just start out by saying this is something that I got in an email. I think Preston got it as well. And we haven't ever had a Ridgway member of the CML, Colorado Municipal League Policy Committee, but Preston and I talked about it, and we thought it warranted at least putting it in front of council and seeing what you all think. So Preston put together a staff report, and
Actually, it was what CML
yeah,
was
it's just
together.
CML, that's right.
That one was easy.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything you want to add, Preston?
No, that was spot on. I don't know if there's a link to it in that memo or if I got to it somewhere else, but there's a whole roster list of appointments. And it's really interesting. The appointments kind of run the gamut. And some communities have more than one member appointed.
Yeah.
There's, I think the large majority is elected officials. And Bo, you might know better than me, and then actually there's some city and town managers as the policy committee appointed member, which is interesting, like Bill Bell and Montrose.
Yeah, it Bill's pretty heavily involved.
Yeah.
Town attorneys.
No, but there would be an interest, so yeah.
You're saying you'd be interested?
Yeah, I don't have the roster from the memo, but I think CML is a good organization. I really enjoyed working with Kevin Balmer and Nick Dollar, and so I would have an interest. Obviously, that I don't think that it would be appropriate if I did serve in that role for it to be billable hours. So
That was gonna be my next question.
yeah. So
If you could do it on a voluntary basis, I think that'd be awesome.
I think Preston's really good kid. I know he's got a ton on his plate though, so.
I'm happy to do it as well. And already keep a pulse on what's going on. I don't attend the meetings, but happy to.
Right. Is there anybody on council that's read this and looked into it at all that is interested?
All of these meetings are Friday midday during the school year. So.
Not gonna work with that. I agree, it's a really important thing, and I think it's great for us to come up with a member or two. I just know that I've got way too much on my plate to add this to my list of chores.
And it sounds like we only can have one and an alternate. We don't have enough people.
Oh, it's based on
to-
population. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think we should let Bo do it.
Sounds
I'll
wonderful.
second that.
I think, well, I'm happy to. I think I don't want to take it away from Preston.
I think Preston.
I think Preston should let you do it.
Well, I think it would be most appropriate for me to do it. And appreciate it, Bo, thank you. So I'm happy to serve. Is that maybe an alternate?
I'd love to be the alternate, yeah. So.
You sure you have bandwidth for that? I know.
Sure, yeah, no, I think yes.
Okay.
And like I said, I was already keeping a pulse, but now I'll just attend the meetings. Hopefully there's virtual options still.
Seems like that would be, it should be an option from now on.
Yeah,
Sure.
for everything. No, John, we just have to budget for an assistant for Preston, and then things get better.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thanks, Preston. I don't think we need to have a motion to do that. That takes us to written and verbal reports. It's a big one update of the 2022 fiscal year budget preparation schedule.
The only change from last month when you saw this for the first time is the budget retreat was changed on October 23rd. That was the only change.
That's because a bunch of us couldn't make it.
And I can't make the 23rd.
Okay, so see, that's like.
That's my long weekend.
Because it's like.
What?
It's too late for those kind of jokes.
Retreat part. Oh, the retreat, to go to one, I got rid of one. Sorry. Well, if October 23rd doesn't work,
It's just me.
the 16th.
16th didn't work.
What about the week before? What's
The 9th,
16, what's 9? Does that work? And
Maybe.
That's the 1K and Barrel Fest day. And we can, but
So
there'll be stuff happening in town.
that's the
Yeah.
The
formerly.
Rally in the alley.
Yeah.
I just assume I'll do it that day. Can everyone else but Beth do it on the 23rd?
Yeah, I mean, and I potentially could, it's just, I don't know what's happening that weekend yet. I just have a 4-day weekend.
I understand.
sign me up for that.
I think it's okay. It's tough for us to get everybody on the same day. Should we make it the 23rd? Everybody okay with that?
Well, we'll have a draft budget. I can leave some notes or something.
Okay. All righty, so there's no action needed on that, right?
No, sir, just, again, wanted to get it in front of you and, the living document will change this completely, but, coming up on budget, and Pam's jumping out of her seat.
Dancing on the table.
The follow-up workshop on November 18th as a country.
Which date?
November 18th.
The individual workshops, it's probably not critical that everybody be here, so.
Yeah, so, well, the November 10th budget hearing is in conjunction with the regular council meeting. The workshop is standalone, so, you know, I don't know that it's imperative. By then, you should already have a good grasp of stuff, so.
Pretty far along.
But we can certainly look to change that date too.
Typically, that's when we start looking at our donation numbers and kind of working through those, I think.
The grant, the community grant stuff, yeah.
Okay. Well, huge thanks to you guys on staff for tackling this big job. It's always a big deal, and you guys always do an incredible job, so thank you.
And does most of the work, it's her baby.
She's good at it. All right, next item is progress report on the 2021 strategic plan. That's the document we have in the packet here.
I don't know that it needs, or warrants a bunch of discussion here. It's purely just a progress report on a bunch of items. I encourage you all to put your eyes to it.
I found that really helpful.
As you have time. So, and we'll discuss it more, of course, during the upcoming budget cycle when we look to modify it for the next year. But wanted to keep you all up to date on where we're at with some items.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed there was only one of these numbered boxes in the whole document that didn't say done or no progress made or whatever, and that was item number 3 under small town character and identity. Secure longer-term storage, vault organization, record management and retention and destruction for official records.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, accomplished.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I just forgot to put that one in.
No problem. I just was curious about that.
I'm gonna let the marshal actually talk about the work that he did on his own time upgrading that shed for long-term storage, right?
Yeah. We had kind of ran into a snag in the price of cargo containers, doubled and tripled over the budgeted amount because everybody's going to those and their supplies. So we opted to turn the old shed that we had stored some chairs and parts for patrol cars and stuff into records facility. And so we redid the outside of it with all metal. Inside we did all metal and were able to put a fire door in and secure it so it's fire safe.
Okay.
And we came in under budget.
Awesome.
And I did records destruction this year.
That's right.
That was a major project.
I was there. I was not there. I didn't, but that happened.
Yeah.
That happened.
Great.
So those are the updates for that one.
Okay, anybody have anything jump at that? Anybody have any questions on concerns? We're down to the skeleton crew on Zoom, but if you guys have any questions or comments, please raise your hand. Hearing nothing else on that, thank you staff for that, Preston particularly for that. And then that brings us to the town manager's report, right?
Yes, sir. I know it's late. I just want to highlight a couple things. Save the date for the Ridgway Space Create celebration toast. I don't know what we decide on calling it, John.
I think we settled on toast.
It was September 9th at noon, right? So we'll,
There's still some potential that that might not happen if the thing, the state, Margaret and everything comes together. We might just put it off till a couple weeks later.
but for now,
For now, this is a smaller, I mean, there will be a bigger celebration at some point with potentially even the governor in person, certainly via Zoom, and a bigger representation of state bigwigs and such. But this is really for us to, since we haven't had a chance to really have a groundbreaking, to have a little celebration, raise a glass, and express how happy we are to be underway on this thing. So.
the Mustang has moved its Mustang Outrider bus stop location from the visitor center to over on Palomino Trail. And they're actually really excited about it. It's working out really well. They get to utilize that traffic light and then they'll come out and utilize it again, coming out as they go south on Palomino, come around. And they cited a number of safety concerns as we're kind of talking them through or going through this with them. And so that took effect about 10 days ago. And still waiting to hear from them how well received it's been. But
Where's the actual bus stop?
there's no signage currently, working through that with them, but in front of Family Dollar.
Okay.
There's a pretty good right away there for them to pull off.
Great. Just curious. Thanks. Good to know.
And then the only other thing I think worth mentioning, and Terry, you can probably help me out, but that SMPA resiliency, Red Mountain resiliency project, and sharing a lot of emails with you. I'm sorry to send so many emails. You guys probably get annoyed with like seeing my name on your inbox. Sorry, but just trying to keep you posted on what's happening. Terry, do you kind of want to maybe give a quick rundown of where that project is at, given that the August dates have been canceled?
That's the roll-up. We're still waiting for CDOT approval of the permit for the September dates. We had there's so much that could be said about all that. The roll-up is that we're having to cut the fire mitigation efforts in half as a result of public outcry and the pressure put on by the senator. So we couldn't get additional helicopter resources for those August dates. So we're working to get the September dates, which would only do about half the amount of work we'd hope to do this season. As a result of that, we're having to seriously reconsider the entire line rebuild project based on the delays and the cost increases associated with the recent events. So we'll be reevaluating the entire project, but we're going to continue to do fire mitigation as best we can in September and then roll that into the spring or next year, I should say. Weather and resource dependent, because that's our current priority is the fire mitigation on the right-of-way clearing, which is a 75-foot wide swath. And so we've downed a lot of trees and there's been a lot of dry vegetation as well as new green vegetation that are compromising the potential integrity of that line. So it's ongoing. We're waiting to get approval from CDOT for the September dates, but current bids are still in the plan, which would include 2 4-hour closures every day with an hour break in between for 2 weeks. The first week is to clear the vegetation, drop it, fell it, some of which will land on the road and cause rock slides, etc. And the second week is for the helicopter removal, which by law, when you're doing helicopter removal over highway, you have to close the highway. So that's the status of that.
And maybe you said this, but CDOT approval, it seems like it's contingent upon Uray County, City of Uray, Silverton, San Juan County, all expressing support.
That's been a mixed bag. So, off the record, well, there's no off the record. They required that we get stakeholder approval and announcement, which we did, and then it came out in the paper and said, well, the bottom line is they're not approving it because we announced it before they gave a permit, which is contradicts what they requested we do. So it's been a rough several weeks of back and forth with numerous stakeholders, and I appreciate you participating.
It's been crazy. The communication breakdowns have been wild. All the way to this.
Originally, where the whole problem got started is
we were not informed of getting the permit till 4 days before they were going to agree to the permit. And that took us by surprise. So we announced that, we got egg on the face immediately, and canceled that. That raised the whole issue publicly, and then mostly Ridgway and Silverton were the primary objectors, San Juan County. The line rebuild benefits entire Ridgway County, so Ridgway, Log Hill, all the way down to Placerville to Kelowna. So the importance of the line rebuild exceeds the concerns of just those two communities. And of course, SMPA, we have to be mindful of the cost and benefit to our entire service territory rather than just two particular communities. But we apologize for the lack of communication on the first one. It caught us off guard as well. So we got to have the gates correlate, and we're trying to do the best now to engage the stakeholders. The workaround to the state senator was unfortunate, since we didn't have a counter soldier in that. He basically made his decision without doing a lot of due diligence. Didn't understand the issue too much. In any case, so we're moving forward with what we can, and hopefully we'll get a fair amount of work done in those 2 weeks in September. And after that, we can't secure any additional helicopter resources because of the demand for those resources for the fires out west, as well as the closing weather window. So we're pretty much going to just stick with those 2 weeks, and then try to pick it up again next year and prioritize the vegetation removal. And then we're going to reassess the actual land rebuild to look at costs and alternatives, material costs, delays. There's so much that plays into that decision.
Okay, so what you're saying is similar to what Brad said in his letter today. He says, given these challenges, we're postponing the construction phase in order to reassess the costs and benefits. So
right. And that's an indefinite postponement, so we'll be reassessing that. I mean, there's other options, some of which originally didn't make sense, like putting a large battery system in to replace the need for the line. But it's pretty clear the line has to be rebuilt. Whether we put the battery system, will only provide backup for 4 hours or something like that. And this is the primary backup. Our primary source of power comes from Montrose to the Dallas Creek substation, which is up on the raft trails. This line backs up that line. So if we lose power from Montrose, from Tri-State, then that line backs up all of the county. Right now, that line is off. So we have no backup at the moment while we're doing vegetation removal. So we're going to be probably re-energizing that line after we get confidence that we've got enough vegetation out of the way not to cause a problem. And then we'll have that redundancy over the winter. And hopefully we'll get a plan in place to either replace the line or find an alternative.
Okay. But the fiber aspect of the project is important too.
And it turns out the fiber aspect of the project, which we didn't highlight enough, is the thing that was of primary interest to the politicians. So when we presented that, they said, "Oh, well, you didn't say anything about the fiber." And all of a sudden, "Oh, we're going to support this 100%." So it's kind of the new coin versus the old coin.
Yeah, but it's key for Silverton for sure.
Now, to be clear, it's the middle mile that we're bringing to the Borough Grid substation. There will be no fiber connection from there to Silverton unless Tri-State brings that connection on.
Oh, okay.
So we're not taking it all the way to Silverton. We're just taking, as long as we're stringing that line with the power, we'll put the fiber in that and bring it to that point. And so the others will take it beyond that. We don't have control over the line from Borough Bridge, which is near the Ophir Pass turnoff, to Silverton. That's a Tri-State line.
Okay. All right, probably getting in the weeds here.
Sorry.
But no, it's okay.
Yeah, that's great. And the last thing I want to mention, it's not in the report, that the Youth Advisory Council solicitation will go out in about 10 days. Next group. Happy to answer any questions on anything else.
What do we think of the joke?
I liked it.
I thought it was pretty good. Let's hear your competition.
I'm too old to understand.
How do you drown a hipster?
How do you drown a hipster?
You throw them in the mainstream.
Oh, look at the smile on that face. Oh, good. Okay. And that goes with this new joke. Nice job, Dylan. Okay, anything else? Any other
Committee reports or?
I have a couple things. One, not committee report, but I want to give a shout out to Shane for attending and participating in the San Miguel Powers active shooter response training. So it went over really well. And Shane gave a great briefing to our group about how he would respond and how the county would respond if there was an active shooter. To that end, it was so successful that I would highly recommend the town look at doing something for the town staff here. Shane is a certified trainer in some of the programs that we went through. Just a heads up on that. And thank you, Shane, for the time you devoted to that. And then from, as a liaison to the fairgrounds, I have a couple things. One, just a listing of, Aaron Stableman contacted me and gave me a listing of upcoming activities. There's on September 3rd and 4th, there's the county fair, which is a junior livestock show and sale. And then that's on Friday and Saturday. And then on Sunday and Monday is the Labor Day rodeo, which has apparently got over 100 years of tradition to it. In addition to that, she raised an issue that she asked me to highlight or bring up with Preston, and I did, concerning concern over a non-potable water tap that the county fair has been using. And Preston has been working with her, and she's agreed that this should just be handled through the administrative level. It doesn't require any town council input at this point. So Preston's got a good handle on the issue. She sent me a note with some of the history as she knows it. And she's working with Preston to find a resolution of the issue. That's it.
Okay.
And Erin's online if she wants anything, I don't know.
Yeah, Aaron, did you want to weigh in at all on that?
No, sir, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Well, unless I hear an objection, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
For 10 o'clock.
See you, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for your patience, everyone, with the internet hookup. I appreciate it.
What was that, Kevin?
Have a great night, guys.